Gaming news today is all about, well, Marathon and Bungie taking center stage once again. Marathon has had some significant changes made to its runway to launch, prompting many to think that the game is being canceled. And canceled might be by Sony. Like, people are looking at this, I think, very accurately now. I have a video coming later today. Maybe you're watching this after the fact, and the video is going to be about how all hope is lost, not just for the game, but for Bungie as well. So be sure to check out that video. Always be sure when you watch those, leave a comment. I try to respond to as many comments as I can, and sometimes those comments get featured into the content, into the live content. But today we're just going to be discussing the recent development. Now, what does this mean? Does this mean the game's canceled? Does this mean Bungie's in trouble? We'll be taking a look at that. Now, if you're watching this later, I know a lot of you are probably, coming around on Twitch, because I am back on Twitch. Funny how things work out. This is sort of the year of things getting, fixed, but then Bungie's in a pretty bad place. And I think people are probably expecting me to kind of run around maybe and gloat and celebrate. And that doesn't seem appropriate, and it just kind of feels sad. But if you're watching this later and you want to be a part of what we do here, what you should do is consider subscribing to the YouTube channel and then becoming a member. That is a way to get into all the behind-the-scenes content, into the Discord. You get to kind of see what I do, streams with my wife, and the like. Make sure if you click that join button that you pick Member Plus. That is the best way to support the channel monetarily. If you can't support the channel monetarily, just make sure you subscribe, hit like, do all those things. Especially even right now, hitting like is hugely helpful, even if you're watching later. You guys that watch on Twitch, if you have Amazon Prime, you can use that every month. Twitch Prime. Twitch Primes have to be renewed every single month. So make sure you guys do that. All right. So we got to get into this. There's a lot to discuss. Smash like, do all the things. YouTube, hit follow, do all the things. Twitch. So in case you missed it, all of Marathon's marketing has been allegedly canceled, and this comes from Colin Moriarty of Sacred Symbols, so I trust it. He's very reliable. But this could be happening for a variety of reasons. The simple answer is the art theft has caused a massive ripple within all of their plans. So much has to be combed over and fixed that they simply can't move forward with anything official just yet. A more complex answer, though, would be that they're delaying the game. Now, this would mean all marketing plans have to be reshaped and then rescheduled. But I think the way everyone is leaning is the one that many of us have expected for a while, and that is that the game is getting canceled. Now, I have a poll right now on my channel. Feel free to go weigh in and vote. And folks seem pretty split on this. There are those who want it to release, maybe just to watch the car crash continue. Some think it will ship simply because Bungie's ego and their plans are just too big to stop. And it all creates a ton of questions. Can PlayStation put a stop to it? After Concord, you would think that they would be heavily motivated to kill this thing, especially with showcase season around the corner and lots of game launches on the horizon. This is becoming a huge distraction and a damper on everything. Even though I don't see this as a Bungie lone project, right? They certainly are underneath PlayStation, but it's not really a PlayStation Live Service initiative. This is something that Bungie's been working on for a very long time. But you're never going to slice that with the public. The public is going to see this as a part of PlayStation. So the canceled marketing plans could literally be the first signal flare into the sky, basically signaling that this game's got an impending demise. And rather than belabor the point, I really want to hear what you think. Do you think PlayStation has stepped in largely to protect themselves and just another live service bomb? Can they step in? I mean, are they even in a position to do that level of control? Or is this thing just going to come out with the wheels falling off before it even really gets out of the starting gate? You can let me know in a comment below, or you can come discuss it in a live stream. So that's it. I mean, that's a 4-minute show open. I mean, there's not much to say. I put a lot more thought into the upload coming later, but that's a very, very different video than what I wanted to discuss with you guys today. That is, all hope is lost. And so I look at a lot of different things and come over a lot of different things to basically conclude that there is no more hope for the game, and probably not a whole lot of hope left for Bungie as a studio. So be sure to check that out. We'll watch that later. But let me comb over what you guys did while I took my little break there. King Troopa, thank you so much for 6 months of members. We got to add you guys here to the total, and we have our friendly little contest. We'll see how long Twitch's lead maintains. And Jerry A, Han shot first, and so did you. First gifted member of the day takes us to 12. Then Joker Quinn's going to take us to 13. And then I am having a really hard time here this morning. Holy crap. Let's just start all the way over. Jiminy Christmas. 13, and then it's going to be 14, and then, yeah, that's it. Jaster with the VIP. So thank you so much, Joker Quinn, for gifting, and Jaster for doing 35 months of the VIP. Now, Ray Raz Gummy, if you want your membership to count towards a total, you got to upgrade from light, because I can't tell if that's a gifted or if you're paying for that or not. But Raz Gurmy says, Bungie's funeral is coming. Reserve your spot soon. It's going to be a full house. So I need to add 3 to the contest here, and that is going to take us to 4. And remember, whoever hits it gets it. So whoever gets us to 25, 50, and so on, that's who gets the gifted members between Twitch and YouTube. Thank you so much. Guys, really quickly, try to get us to 100 likes faster than ever on YouTube. That really does help out the videos. Did I miss anything? I just did a very, very brief show open. There's not much. I do have to thank Street Shadow, though, for the $10 super chat tip. Street Shadow says, Sony paid $2.4 billion for Bungie. $1.2 billion more was for 4-year retention bonuses. If employees leave or are fired, they forfeit the rest. So much of that amount is likely already paid or unclaimed, says Street Shadow. Thank you for the $10. And then a $20 super chat from Brandon says, I heard from other YouTubers that it sounds like PlayStation would want Marathon to fail so they can remove Bungie leadership, because it's not really much of a secret that Sony is very angry at Bungie. And then Stone Spire is going to gift a member. He is setting up the first 10-bomb dunker of the week. We'll see if anybody takes the bait. Remember, whoever hits it gets it. So that would take this total to 25 if a 10-bomb comes in. So thank you so much for doing that, Stone Spire. He is the king of baiting those big member bombs. We'll see who takes the bait first, Twitch or YouTube. It's anybody's game at this point. Got a rumor around the PlayStation forums and servers that Pete Parsons has been put out on paid leave, and PlayStation is trying heavy damage control with upper management. Where did you hear this, Bradford? Did you hear it from somebody reliable, or is this just like people talking on Reddit or Twitter? Yeah, I would imagine they really want to keep the name of the studio. Like, I don't think that the name is as sullied as everybody thinks it is. Like, in 3 to 4 years, if quote unquote, Bungie as a PlayStation studio were to announce Destiny 3, I think that would be, that would be pretty significant. It would. They're just biding time. My personal opinion on this and my own personal prediction is sometime this week that game gets canceled. I don't think PlayStation wants Marathon hanging in the air. Like Brandon Super Chat is theorizing that no, PlayStation wants Marathon to fail because then people will leave, people will get laid off, they won't have to pay, that final amortized payment won't be as large. Bradford says, a friend of mine works in PlayStation IT. Okay, so you've got somebody who works at PlayStation who's saying Pete Parsons is on paid leave and PlayStation is doing heavy damage control with upper management. And a 5-bomb comes in from Joker Quinn. He's setting it up right there. It's anybody's game. Whoever hits it gets it. Whoever makes this hit 25 gets the 5 gifted, and it's currently tied 10-10. Very nicely done, Joker Quinn. Thank you, sir. Good morning, Melrose Mike. How are you? Ice Queen, I saw you in chat as well. Good to see you. The employees, they don't really try, given the freedom and the management. And Alex is going to take it for Team Twitch. Thank you so much, Alex. The first victory of the week for Twitch. He takes it with the 5-bomb, and we are now at our first milestone of the week. It seems that Twitch is slowly amassing the people that can pull off those wins, and I'm going to gift them theirs right now. Thank you so much for doing that, Alex. The version of Marathon, this version of Marathon is canceled. Too much BS. Art style is sullied. I don't think the game can ever come to light. Wait, was that a 5 bomb or a 10 bomb? Oh, no, yeah, it was a 5 bomb. Mine added on and made it look like that you did 10. Sorry. This could be mid-level PlayStation employee cope or misinformation, but it's the best I got. I mean, I would imagine that... Why does it keep popping out? I don't understand. Oh, the 5 was from me. Did I miss a single, though? I don't know. The single one popped out for some reason. Remember when Marathon had deep lore? No. We all saw Marathon being canceled. I don't think everybody saw that. Are you kidding me? I told them to cancel last year, and then early April this year, I said it was a recipe for failure, and I got a bunch of hate. I got Bungie Defense Force. You know, I got people that write for Forbes that you know, retweeted somebody who said, I hate people like this. There was somebody that did not like my video where I said that, you know, that it was a recipe for failure. And I got somebody who said they hated me and they got signal boosted by somebody who writes for Forbes. I don't think everybody saw this coming. There were people that were in this game's corner, and now they want to act like, oh, I was concerned all along. Yeah, sure, Jan. Now that everybody else has said it, you feel safe in the herd. Nobody wants to cross Bungie until basically everybody has. That's the beauty of my situation. I had no reason to protect the game or play nice with Bungie. I could just say what I thought. Unlike people that had to toe the party line until, I don't know, last week, all of a sudden people wanted to act like, oh yeah, this is a problem. It's been a problem since they first talked about it. Who thought this thing had a prayer before they stole artwork? Whiskey Neat with 28 months in a VIP. Happy Memorial Day. Hope everyone has a blessed day. Yes. Happy Memorial Day to everybody. I did want to say that, you know, many have fallen among the years, you know, that this country's been in existence, and that's what today is all about. So remember the fallen and celebrate them and the sacrifices they made. If you're cooking out, hanging out with fam, listen, a lot of you guys are going to go to, you know, parties and you're going to be drinking and stuff, and always be safe. The money for an Uber or a Lyft is a fraction of what you could do to somebody else or yourself, all right? Be safe out there, all right? Don't ruin the day, okay? And have a good one. But thank you, Whiskey Neat. 38 months from Elevated Vibrations. Who doesn't want a new single-player campaign for Marathon? And then 48 months from Liquid. Marathon should never have been in development for the past 6 years or however long it was. It should have been put into D2 or better, D3. So that's 3 there to add to the total. Thank you so much for doing that, boys. And then another one coming in from Melrose Mike. It's almost tied, 14-15. 29 on the week already. You guys are crushing it. Thank you so much for that support. Putting the red, white, and blue in the resub. Thank you, Melrose Mike. I have given Destin Legary full props for his work in this. I have, right? We've had our issues in the past, but if he starts using his platform and his contacts to do that type of work, that is what Gaming Press should be doing. That is what Gaming Press should be doing. They should be doing the hard work. They should be the ones saying the hard things, not just sitting back and going along with the group or the mob or whatever. You know, Gaming Press should have done a much better job of being investigative back in 2020, right? We could do with a little investigative work these days. So yes, I think what he's doing is good, and I hope that continues. I hope his content goes in that direction, right? You've got contacts, and sure, you might burn a bridge or two, but it's worth it for the public to get the information. So, yeah. I've said it a couple of times. He gets mad. He gets props. And OW2 is amazing with 29 months. And DK Bager with the gifted. I know what DK Bager was trying to do. Bager was trying to bait the 20 bomb. We are now at 31. Thank you so much. We are 20 away from the next milestone. And YouTube takes the lead on the week. Whoever hits it gets it. We'll see if anybody wants to be the first 20 bomb of the week. The more I hear, the more it feels like Sony bought a lemon for $36 billion. People keep running to that, but I don't know. The jury for me is still out on that. I mean, the jury is out because they spent $2.4 billion for the studio. They spent $1 billion in retention that they might even not have to pay because a lot of people have been laid off and people might not, be here. when it's time. So I would say that, why don't you do that yourself? Because I don't have the ability to do that. As a live streamer, I also don't have sources. Some of these guys have been in the industry for a super long time, and they have sources at all these companies. For real. He's not verified any of his sources. It's all anonymous emails. Not sure I buy all of it. So he said all the emails are anonymous. Come on. The emails are anonymous, but they just happen to line up with things that we heard from the IGN Puff piece from 4 years ago. Elevated Vibrations with a $50 super chat. Here's $50 for your Marathon Collector's Edition. Thank you. I thought you were going to say for your anniversary. I was like, I legitimately thought that's what that was going to be. You in Paris, though, like Ja Rule and 50, ain't never going to be no love there. I don't have any issue with Paris. I just wish people didn't come to conclusions about me from clips on Twitter. You know what I'm saying? I think that's ridiculous. And to be mad at me and think things about me based on things I never said. Like, that's utter foolishness. I don't have another word for that. That's foolish. That is foolish behavior. You know. Him and his other buddy think I said things I never said, and that's what the cause of so much of that was. And it's like, I didn't handle it perfectly, but you know, I don't really feel like I owe people explanations when they're not even going to be watching the content. They're going to watch a stupid clip with a false summary and read the summary and not watch the clip. So it's not my job to educate you. Sorry. If you want to know what I think, you could ask me. If you want to know what I'm saying, come to watch my content, not some weirdo sycophantic hate spewer on Twitter. Like, if that's where you're getting your information, I question a lot. Another reason I heard PlayStation is combing through upper management was to give devs the summer free of the good old boys, and that they don't have the upper management excuse come launch. Listen, I don't think that that doesn't really sound to me. I mean, listen, it's good for content. 100% transparency. I get to make way more videos on this if they actually launch the game. And I'm here to tell you, the right thing to do is cancel the game this week before we get into showcase season. Like, content creators are wringing their hands, hoping this game crawls across the finish line, because we get to make more videos. I'm being transparent and I'm being honest. And I'm like, listen, the best thing to do is to cancel this. Sure, go ahead, bring it to market. I get to make a bunch of more videos about your complete and utter failure, which has its own ring of karma to it. But like, I'm here to tell you, you're better off just canceling this thing. It's a non-starter. There's a part of me that's worried they're going to cancel it today and they're going to kill my video. I got an upload coming later today. I'm like, they're going to kill my video. They're going to cancel this dadgum thing today before they make any announcements about days of play or state of play or any of that. Yo, Bruge Ann, thank you so much for 3 months of memberships over here on Twitch. Bumping the line on the week to 32 and tying it up between Twitch and YouTube. Thank you so much. It is Memorial Day. Yeah, the only thing in my corner is that it's a holiday, and they might not come to any. They might not make any formal decisions or announcements on a holiday. I don't know. You think they cancel it during Summer Game Fest to bury it? No, I don't agree with that, and here's why. Typically, the pattern of companies like this is they cancel or Band-Aid rip the negative news. They do it before we get into all the announcements because they don't want it to be a distraction. Let me be real with you. Marathon getting canceled, you're not burying that. You aren't. This slow motion car crash isn't going to be a quiet one. So you do it now. You do it right now. Tomorrow. Just rip that Band-Aid off. Listen. After further review and assessing all of the input that would need to go into this game, we have made the regrettable decision to cancel Marathon indefinitely. You know, we look forward to future endeavors with you as we assess what projects and talent we can leverage right now. You know, And we're looking forward to some announcements for Summer Game Fest. I don't know, something like that. Just get this thing out of the dadgum frame. What is this? Speaking of Memorial Day, I went out on a limb. Hopefully these are good. I see the word bourbon in a can, and I'm like, oh my gosh. Bourbon smash, ginger, mint, and lemon. Fuzzy, listen. I know you're gay. Okay. But that's gay, bro. What did you buy? What is that? You don't like ginger? I like Ginger, the content creator. I don't want no ginger in my drinks. What are you doing, man? Listen, brother. I drink bourbon the way that the Lord intended, in a glass. You know what I'm saying? I just pour it in a glass. Oh my gosh. Let me know if it's any good. Let me know if it's any good. I doubt. I don't think I would like that. Based on the flavor palette alone, to me would be like. Jasper says, "My brother in Christ, what the f?" Yeah. Anyway, a $2 super chat from J Hart. Does Sony have the power to cancel? I don't know. Yeah, bourbon and mint. Well, if you make a mint julep, yeah, mint juleps are pretty good. I don't really like a mint julep, but I got a pre-made Walcott mint julep that I liked. It wasn't like drinking toothpaste. Sometimes a mint julep tastes like somebody squirted toothpaste in the dadgum cup. But yeah, you can put mint in bourbon in the appropriate way. Make a pretty good drink. Mint julep's like a derby drink. Anyway, I don't know if PlayStation has the ability to be like, listen, Marathon canceled. I don't know if they have the ability to do that. I think they have a vested interest in walking in the room and saying, shut this down. Shut it down. We're about to go into showcase season. You got to get this stench out of the room. This is all anybody's going to be talking about. Like, PlayStation cannot hope to announce a single live service game until this game has been out of the frame for at least 6 months. Like, let's just say they delay it. Let's entertain that thought process. You're just dragging its corpse into next year for no reason. There's no reason to do that. It doesn't have a prayer of being successful. It doesn't. It's over. So, you do it, you just do it now. Get it over and done with. At some level. I'm surprised it didn't happen last week. Sony's publishing. Their logos show on the boot up of the alpha. So Sony can cancel, yeah, as the publisher. There's a certain level of... There's a sneering anarchist in me. Like, I have that streak in me, okay? There's a bit of a sneering anarchist that makes me want to kind of grin and say, I hope PlayStation makes them ship it. I hope PlayStation just publishes it and makes them wear it. But I'm also like, that doesn't seem like a good idea. The business side of me just immediately crops up and is like, are you an idiot? Why would you do that? You know what I'm saying? Banger shirt. Oh, I need to do this. Let me pull it up. This is a good one here. Okay. Boys, it is... Hang on. Let's do this right. Let's do this activation right. Hey, that actually looks really good. Okay. It's Memorial Day, boys. And they're having a huge sale over there at Into the AM. They sent me some new shirts. I picked this one out, and I thought it looked awesome. I love all of the, all the astronaut themed stuff that they do over there. Right now, you can use my code on top of sales that they do at Into the AM. This is one of the benefits of when they do a sale. So their Memorial Day sale is going on site-wide right now. Use code LONO on top. They don't just do graphic tees. They do plain colored tees that look great, fit great. They do jeans. They do pants. They do all kinds of stuff, okay? So if you're trying to get some new stuff for the summer, get some new summer wear, maybe you're wanting to look a little fancy by the poolside or you're going to a cookout or something, their button-ups are also Very, very nice. All right. So check those out. Use code Lono, or you can go to intotheam.com/Lono, and that does support me. So thank you. Seeing Marathon come to market, I don't think it'll be a train wreck the way games like Redfall were a train wreck. Do they fit fat guys? They go up to pretty high sizes, so I would hope so. I mean, I would imagine a lot of their customers are in America, and America is not known for our thin stature, not anymore at least. So I would imagine they've got larger sizes for you hefty boys out there. How does Tainted Grail have a 4.5 on PlayStation? Did they fix all the issues? They pushed out another patch. I have not had a chance to check it out. Marathon dropped out of the top 50 Steam wish list. It says Hadigan. I mean, that's not surprising at all. That is not surprising at all. I mean, what on earth? What are you going to do with it? You know what I mean? Hang on. I'm going to throw this into the folder for Creature. That show open is short enough to be a short. It's like 2 minutes or something. So start just throwing those shorts out. Might as well. $10 super chat from Street Shadow. Live service is not just shooters or your Fortnite. MLB The Show and GT7 are both successful live service. Live service has its place with a variety of options. I do think a lot of the conversation about this is getting hijacked on people who really want to pin a loss to PlayStation because they don't like them or they've been cheering for Team Green. Some of these guys are like PC guys that just for whatever reason magically mimic all the talking points of the hardcore Xbox guys. And they're very anti-Sony. Trying to pin this to PlayStation as like, yep, their live service efforts have been terrible. We're just going to ignore the commercial success of MLB The Show, Gran Turismo 7, and Helldivers 2, and we're only going to fixate on Concord, abysmal failure, and Marathon, which has nothing to do with PlayStation's live service efforts. This was a Bungie project that's been in incubation before they were purchased, and PlayStation bought them and allowed them to work independently. So it wasn't like they were going to buy Bungie, walk in the room and say, that's crap, shut it down. It was like, no, they bought them and let them function independently. Pinning this to PlayStation doesn't make an ounce of sense, unless you're basically the grifting, dishonest YouTube circuit or Twitter warriors who are still fighting a console war. It's like, this has nothing to do with PlayStation. Clip this and say I'm a coping pony. You don't have any other vocabulary. Like, that's the facts. This has nothing to do with PlayStation. In fact, PlayStation is the publisher. I'm holding them accountable and saying you should cancel this crap. As great as it would be to make some more videos and to do some more live streams, cancel it. As the publisher, you have a duty to your shareholders to take this thing out back and kill it, because it's all it's going to do is come out and flop. I can't see PlayStation bringing this to market unless it's like a game of 4D chess and they're trying to bring Bungie into a more depressed state so people leave, lay off, get fired, and then they don't have to pay all those incentives in the final amortized payment. I don't know. Like, if that's what they're doing, that's ridiculous. To basically run this thing into the ground so that then you can pay less money on your amortized acquisition payment. Light Leap, thank you so much for 33 months. 33 months, and he takes the count to the week to 33. That's serendipitous. I don't have any cheeseburgers, man, and we're not doing a podcast anyway, so go get your own dadgum cheeseburger. We're definitely getting pre-orders next week. Pre-order items for Marathon entered the database for Destiny this week. That could have all been automated. Yeah, I don't know, Chili. That could have all been automated. I'm not going to put a lot of stock in that. I can't imagine being PlayStation right now and not thinking, we have got to cancel this thing. You're going into showcase season and you want this in the headlines? Pre-orders lower than any other game. Pre-orders in the toilet. Nobody cares about Marathon. Lowest pre-ordered Bungie game in history. Like, These are the headlines you can look forward to if you don't kill this thing. Yo, it's good, Zubair. That feels more like a Microsoft strategy than a Sony one, right? Pushing a project out to hurt the company so you don't have to pay money for it. Guys, get us to 200 likes. We just hit 30 minutes on the broadcast. Do me a real quick favor on YouTube. Double check that you got your like in. That ritual is super helpful, and it's free. And thank you, everybody watching on Twitch. Thank you. The friendly little competition down here in the corner is the tightest it's been in a while, and Twitch already won the first one. They got us to 25. Whoever gets us to 50, you get the next. Spectre Divide, X Defiant, Concord, server shut down. You can't pre-order Marathon, at least not on the PlayStation Store. No, they're saying, Mew, that pre-orders are going to go live probably next week because they loaded in the pre-order elements into Destiny. I'm here to tell you, that might have been automated or that might have been on somebody's to-do list at Bungie and it hasn't been moved off of their to-do list, right? Hank, in the department that handles that, was like, what do I have to do today? Oh, that's right, I've got to push this stuff into the database. And he just shoves it in. That doesn't tell me that it's coming out. I wouldn't put a whole lot of stock in that. That could have been the job of somebody in some department, and it hasn't been. They don't have any official word yet on, is it canceled? Is it coming to market? You know, what are we doing here? And so he may have just hit the button. Yeah, put it in. And because he hit that button, everybody's like, oh, it must be coming out. Not necessarily. Until you get an official word of cancel from the publisher or from the higher-ups, you're just going to proceed as usual. You're just going to go forward like nothing has changed, because I don't think anything has. Pre-ordering was canceled. Well, they had to cancel pre-orders, Melissa, because they could not use any of those incentives anymore, because it probably had the stolen artwork in it. What people are saying, though, is that the Destiny game was updated. Yo, Ghostface with the VIP, and he bumps the line to 34, but then a 10 bomb comes in from Behemoth, and he gets us to 44. We are now 6 away. We are now 6 away from the next milestone of 50, and Twitch does have an advantage. They can do exactly 6 members or if they want when they gift. YouTube, you got to do 1s, 5s, 10s, and 20s and 50s. So it's anybody's game at this point. We are 6 away. That's also the voice I use when I read my to-do list. Yes, everybody has a voice that they use when they're like reading through things. Like, you know, we all do it. Well, maybe you guys don't. I do. I'm like, I don't want to do this crap. Like, or if I'm like really, you know, being mockery about it, I'll do like a southern accent, you know. YouTube should let you be granular. It would be nice if they did, for sure. I think the majority of launches are automated. No one is pushing buttons. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, Broken Earth. I think this is all automated. I don't think that they have internally made a decision yet. I think PlayStation. I think PlayStation is going to make the call. And I think they need to say, shut the whole dadgum thing down. We're going into showcase season. You guys can't hang out anymore. You stink. You're stinking up the whole room. Everybody's going to be talking about you instead of all the other announcements that we have. Did you see IGN's review of Arc Raiders, 6 minutes of pure comedy gold? I've seen a bunch of people, Asmongold reacted to it and said IGN did it again. And I think I even saw Luke Stevens reacted to it. How bad was it? Listen, if you're getting hit by Zach and Luke, you did something wrong. You did something wrong. You done screwed up, AA Ron. Like, what did they do with their review? I didn't have time to watch it. Like, Luke and Zach are very different, and they don't pick the same targets all the time. The fact that they both looked at that review, I was like, it must be pretty bad. It's the worst, best review that I have ever seen. Really? I have not had a chance. It had 500 likes and 12,000 dislikes. What the frick did they do? It's rough. Filmed in 50 FPS on a bad PC, and he had odd takes. The IGN reviewer couldn't even shoot the gun. He was talking about guns? Holy mackerel. Watch it. Well, it's not really on topic for today, so I'll have to watch it later. Compared it to Fortnite. Oh, we're dealing with the true intellectual. Marathon's canceled. Well, you're putting a question mark in your statement, and if you'll notice, my sentence also has a question mark. It would seem we're in the early stages of signs that it has been canceled. Yes, it was a hit piece. It's not the first time IGN's wrote a hit piece. They wrote that absolutely abhorrent, poorly investigated pile of crap about Black Myth Wukong. And it's not a coincidence. It was written by the same person who wrote the puff piece for Bungie in 2021. Yeah, there's some things lining up there if you're smart enough to figure out what's going on. More of like, more like we are aligned politically. So I'm going to do you some favors, and you're going to like make things up about Black Myth. Kino Man Sky says, I just finished Ori 1. It was incredible. We'll play Ori 2 soon. What was your favorite? Please don't spoil. I love them both for different reasons. I loved how the combat evolved in Ori 2. I actually would suggest that you play Hollow Knight before you play Ori 2. Ori 2 borrowed a lot from Hollow Knight in a good way. That feels like that's like a great Metroidvania trilogy, as you go Ori 1, Hollow Knight, and then Ori 2. But if you already played Hollow Knight, then just jump right in. You will appreciate the influences of Hollow Knight in Ori 2 if you play it first. I haven't trusted IGN since their Alien Isolation review. They've been crap ever since they gave Alien Isolation a bad score because the AI was too good. I love that two completely different people both were like, yeah, I just haven't gotten over that Alien Isolation review, bro. Like, you guys hear the name IGN and it gives you like PTSD, your eye starts twitching, you're like, that stupid Alien Isolation review. Oh, Behemoth. He's playing for both teams today. He just gifted 10 members and he gives the win to Twitch. Twitch hits 50 and YouTube misses out yet again. And he ties it up 27-27. I now owe Twitch 5 members. Whoever hits it gets it, boys. We are now 21 away from the next milestone of 75. Behemoth out here is playing for both sides, and he chose to give it to Twitch. Pyramid Scheme says, Behemoth, you scumbag, you absolute cheat. Top Reply is going to keep the train going, and he gives 21. Unbelievable. Top Reply says, oh, hey, boys on YouTube, the next one is ours as well. Holy mackerel. Taking the 75 right on the nose. You'll love to see it. And that takes the total to 27-48. You guys are in trouble. Twitch is running away with it today. You love to see it. Twitch got beat up a lot last week, man. Between Pathalon Phoenix and MASH, they didn't stand a chance. So, at least Christopher Barrett is gone and disgraced. I mean, yeah, he totally got what he deserved. You know what I'm saying? Totally got what he deserved. He's a liar. He lied about me publicly, made a bunch of statements about me that were false, and it turns out, I guess he was just talking about himself when he said I was a predator. You know what I'm saying? Tried to file a wrongful firing suit, and Sony was like, why don't we just let the public see your DMs and your emails? And how'd that one go for you, Chris? You know what I mean? Sony out here pulling a Kendrick. You know what I mean? Say, Chris, like, let's just take a look at what you were saying, bud. The extractionist extraction shooter that ever extracted. If you enjoy other games about avoiding PvE foes while robbing PvP players, you'll enjoy Arc Raiders. Wait. Is that a line? Is that a line from IGN's review? For real? I'm absolutely convinced that he got your Twitch pulled. We will never know. You know, I'm incredibly grateful that Dan Clancy took my emails and took the time to look into it and to welcome me back. I think that's magnificent that he did that. It's a shame that it took as long as it did, but, you know, it's hard not to see the one tweet is taking credit. Like, within the hour of me being banned, he tweets the gif of Mulder, you know, and Mulder gets a text message that says, all done, bye-bye. Almost like, we took care of it, boys, don't worry. You know what I mean? Like, that tweet to me was like, you were taking credit. No point looking at the past. It's all about moving forward. Oh, man, sure. I mean, it's part of my journey. I'm not going to, like, not talk about it, but, you know, all done, bye-bye is, you know, funny enough what everybody gets to say to him now. Once Bungie is absorbed, email Sony CEO and get the ban lifted. Why not try? Dude, what? I'm not going to email the Sony CEO to be like, can you unban me in Destiny 2? Like, no. I don't give a frick about getting unbanned from their game. I have zero desire to play it. I've not touched the game in 4 years. It doesn't even look like a game that I would enjoy anymore. I really don't think I would even enjoy it. Yeah, hey, Hideki Nishino, you know, I'm going to CC Herman Holst, you know, and I'll email Hideki Nishino and be like, can I get my Destiny 2 count back? Come on. It was just after they had a deal with Twitch, and that guy was fired. He was fired a month later. Yeah. Didn't he tweet a pic of a phone being hung up when it all happened? Oh, I don't know if the partner manager at the time that was, you know, fired a month later, I don't know if he tweeted a phone being hung up. I couldn't see anything. I have no idea. You don't want to play Star Wars and Destiny 2? You must have your Orbit Simulator back now. Oh, no. No, it's this animated GIF. Mulder phone GIF. It's this one. Open image in a new tab. Within the hour of me being banned, he tweeted this. Barrett tweeted this. All done, bye-bye. Like, come on. That is, if that's not like a sneering admission... You made a phone call, bro. Like, what? How are we supposed to interpret that? You know, it was my turn to tweet that when he got fired, though. So it all came back around full circle. It all worked out. You know, that animated GIF has multiple uses now. You seem upset that others have an opinion that may make Gran Turismo 7 more, or that Gran Turismo 7 is different than Horizon? Wait, what are you guys debating about Gran Turismo 7 for? Asmo and Street Shadow? Horizon has more players than Gran Turismo 7? More players? I mean, comparing players is fine. What the commercial success of Gran Turismo is undeniable. It's like one of the most commercially successful franchises that Sony has. Like, why are you even barking up this tree? It feels like a really significant wasted effort. Like, they're both good games in their own right. They both have been praised. You know, Forza Horizon's been praised for how pretty it is. Gran Turismo 7 has been praised for how pretty it is. And then when you start breaking them down, they're very different games. And Gran Turismo has been incredibly successful. Like, there's no reason to have this competition. They're both good games that have done well. You gonna go back to Twitch streaming? I'm streaming on Twitch right now. I'm dual streaming. I'm on both platforms at the same time. I've had my Twitch channel back for like 5 weeks. It brings me joy every day I see you back on Twitch. Thanks for the shows, Lono. I can't be here much with work. Well, I'm glad you're here, Classic Xander, and supporting with your subs. Guys, if you're watching on YouTube, I have been back on Twitch for 5 weeks. If you pay for Amazon Prime, you can support me on Twitch, and it doesn't cost you anything. You're already paying for Amazon Prime. You can do your Twitch Prime sub on me on Twitch every single month. Remember, it's a manual renewal. It won't do it automatically, so you got to go over there and do it. So you can use the Twitch command in chat. And when you watch on Twitch, if you're sub to me, you will never see ads. I can't do that for y'all on YouTube, but I do my best to really minimize them. I've been told they're starting to make them less intrusive and not, like, take over the stream. So hopefully that continues. Gran Turismo has sold over 90 million copies, and Forza Motorsport and Forza Horizon series combined have sold about 45 million copies. Sold copies doesn't work for comparison because of Game Pass. So you just admitted that the argument that you're having is a waste of time. I appreciate you admitting that. Let's move on. It's not worth having the discussion, bro. They're completely different games. They've both been praised in their own right. They've both been successful in their own right. You can't compare the sales, as you've said, because one's on Game Pass. Now, Forza Horizon, according to Phil Spencer, had a boost in its sales because of Game Pass, which makes your argumentation difficult. It also makes your argumentation difficult to cheer for one over the other, given wouldn't that then therefore mean it should have more, lifetime sales? Again, you're barking up the wrong tree if you're trying to diminish Gran Turismo. You're wasting your time. It is an absolute waste of time. It is a massively successful game. You are wasting every sentence you type about it is a waste of your time. That is not a game to try to diminish. It's like the people who try to diminish Horizon Forbidden West. It's like it's been incredibly successful. Like, stop trying to make Horizon a thing. Okay, it's like one of the most successful franchises, but sure. I'm seeing signs for Arc Raiders everywhere. Your t-shirt, for example. I need help. This is not an Arc Raiders shirt, but sure. As long as studios continue making games. Yeah, I don't think for Forza's going anywhere. It's a recognizable IP. It's a very good looking game. And now that they're doing multi-plat with it, I think that Xbox is going to be heavily motivated to do a new Forza very soon. I would imagine we might see one this summer. I don't know. It's been a while since Forza Horizon came out. And Forza Motorsport is handled by a different team, so... Comparing Horizon to Gran Turismo 7 is like comparing a McDonald's to a family-owned barbecue restaurant. I don't even understand what that means, but sure. All right. Back to the subject matter at hand. Let's go consult the poll. What do you guys think? Does Marathon ever see the light of day? Let's take a look at the poll. It was a little bit more split, and now it is not. Let me get back into my camera circle here. There we go. We want to look a little bit professional here. Okay. So, do you think do you think Bungie's Marathon will be canceled? Yes. 64%. 36% said no. So you can take this poll on my channel right now. It's under posts. Yes, but it will flop, says Sackboy. I mean, I'm of the very strong opinion that PlayStation is more motivated to cancel it. That's what I think they're motivated to do. They're motivated to cancel it. The Terror Master says niche games can be successful even if not breaking the scales. But we're not... No. We're not talking about whether or not a niche game can be successful. We're talking about a game that is headed for utter disaster. This game is a catastrophe. It's a catastrophe. It doesn't have a shot. Sorry to be off topic, but if Arc Raiders has said anything about putting a PvE mode, they've not said a word, no. I feel like they will. I feel like I feel like my video about it's gonna age like a fine wine. People are like, you're an idiot. There was a guy who commented on my video about PvE and Arc Raiders, and he called me a hater. I was like, the video isn't hate at all. It's actually a very positive video about how good the game is and how you would open up a significant, portion of the gaming audience to your game if they didn't have to worry about PvP. And you could do it in a way that doesn't harm the fabric of an extraction shooter. It doesn't harm the intensity of going into PvP. You could even set it up to where people would want to. But Marathon doesn't have a prayer. Even if you added PvE to Marathon right now, it wouldn't make a lick of a difference. It wouldn't. It's not like people would suddenly flood the gates and say, oh yeah, we definitely are going to play that game now. What would be better of the two scenarios, says Mikeldozo. How am I supposed to say your name? Mikeldo? I think it's just Mikeldo, not the Zio doesn't matter, probably. Straight canceling a Marathon or release it and it fails and potentially recoup some of the cost. You can't recoup costs on something that expensive, I don't think. 1000% I main PvE games. Both would need a PvE option to get my purchase, says Echo Doctrine. It's wild seeing you back on Twitch and Destiny in the state that it is in, with Bungie going down and the blank Chris Barrett getting his just desserts. Chef's kiss. But let's move forwards. Listen, if you want to throw confetti in the air about the Uno reverse card that this year is turning into, you can do that. That's fine. You're allowed to do that. Listen, when I got bumped to YouTube and I said, give me 5 years, I didn't mean that literally. I was just like, look, give me 5 years. I'll rebuild. We'll build a show over there on YouTube. I don't have the gift of prophecy. I just said, give me 5 years and I'll show you what I can do. I didn't do anything, by the way. I've just been making content and doing my thing. Okay? I have been very well behaved and not vengeful and nasty. Maybe a little cheeky, but I've been very well behaved. And it's very difficult to be well behaved given how this year is shaping up. Street Shadow submits something here. You can submit questions like this anytime if you are a member on YouTube or a sub on Twitch. He says, Lono, if Sony fires Pete Parsons and installs you as the new studio head, what do you do? I would conduct initially the first thing I would do is a barometer of morale. I would allow people anonymously to speak to leadership, management, HR, all of it. And I would find the bad actors and I would get them the frick out. If I go to a particular team and they're all saying the manager is trash and toxic and doing bad things, it's all anonymous, by the way. So you would obviously look for patterns. Not just a disgruntled employee that's like, I don't like my boss, so, like, if you have clear patterns of either misconduct or toxicity or bad leadership, I'd walk those people out the front frickin' door. Like, get the frick out of here. Like, that's the problem with the company, is the leadership. And the best way to find, and here's the thing, you got to find the bad leaders. There are probably good leaders. There are probably good team leads and managers at Bungie. It's too big of a company to be like, nope, they're all trash. Like, I'm sure there are good people there. Like Joe Ziegler, as an example. He's fairly new. He came from Riot. I don't know if you want to walk him out the door. He got handed a crap sandwich. It's not his fault that, like, the former director was a creep and, like, got fired, and then he had to step in, and, like, I'm not saying he made all the best decisions, but ultimately, I don't know if you want to lose somebody like that, okay? Especially considering, he had to sit on a live stream next to the art director, and that probably was not fun. I mean, he really took one for the team doing that AMA. So you'd want to do internal assessment first of Bungie to figure out what in the frick is going on at this company and just walk everybody else out the door that's toxic. Get them out of the dadgum building. The second thing I would do is I would assess who is willing and wants to work on Destiny 3, if we switch engines, right? Is part of the reason that Destiny 1 and 2 over the years was so stressful, so difficult, so arduous, so strenuous on the company. Was it because of the Tiger engine? I happen to think that that's one of the reasons it was such a difficult task, and I get why they didn't want to do Destiny anymore. A lot of people don't realize, but, like, the reason that they moved away from doing a Destiny 3 is because of that. Because they could not do it again. It was tough on the company. When they were no longer protected by Activision, when they no longer had High Moon Studios and Vicarious Visions, they learned very quickly how difficult it was. to do and to fly on their own. Thank you, Frank, for 6 months of memberships. Good morning, Lono and chat. Have a great day. Thank you for that Agent of Chaos, pushing us past the 75 milestone to 76. It's all Twitch today. They're winning 48-27. Our next milestone is 100, and then I'll owe whoever does that 5 members. So, yeah, I would try and figure out, number one, do we have enough people here to even do Destiny 3? Like, do you want to if we switch engines? And if we put new leadership in, can you stick this out with me? Can you help me build Destiny 3? That's what I would be trying to do. Let's build Destiny 3. Who here is willing to do it? And is your willingness to do it tied to leadership leaving? That's bad. And is it also tied to the engine? Like, could we work in a new engine and potentially, build this thing and not deal with all the struggles and all of the strain that, Tiger Engine put them in with D1 and with D2? And then the third thing I would do is I would go to all my other studios and say, we've restructured the leadership. We have gotten the bad actors out. We're going to build Destiny 3. We're going to build it in Unreal 5. We're going to build it in Decima, whatever. Does anybody want to come and work on this? Is there anybody at Bend or Guerrilla that want to come work on this? I mean, you could have guys at Guerrilla that are great with guns because of Killzone, and maybe they want to move away from Horizon. You might have guys at Bend that are like, man, I was kind of getting into the live service systems and the elements of what we were going to build. I'd like to do something like that. Try to pool your talent. Anybody at Bungie who doesn't want to work on Destiny 3, I would try to find them a place at one of the other studios. Do you think anybody wants to work at Bungie right now? No, they don't. I talked about this in my video last week. I said this is a bigger problem than just Marathon and oh no, Destiny is going down in demand. The problem is also, if you need to hire anybody, nobody's going to want to work at Bungie right now. That you talk about a pariah, nobody's going to want to go work there after everything we're hearing. Covering the HR department, covering up, misconduct. You got toxic leadership. You got people saying working on Marathon was toxic. I mean, no. The industry has enough of this. Why would you go and expose yourself to it? Butter says, PvE and extraction shooter 2 years ago, I would have called you an idiot. Tarkov added PvE almost 2 years ago, so I think extraction shooters have a place for PvE. The Stalker series is pretty much a single-player extraction shooter. It can be done, but they have to actually do story and world building. Lono's the puppeteer behind all of this, so when your plan comes together and they fold, what's the first IP you're going to cherry pick? Huh? I don't know what you're talking about. What IP am I cherry picking? I think No Man's Sky situation is different because the game was extremely hyped. People were very excited for it before launch. Marathon has had nowhere near that level of enthusiasm. Oh, right. I mean, one of the reasons that people got behind the No Man's Sky turnaround was because they started delivering the game that they promised everybody. Because the game that they promised everybody, people wanted to play. Nobody cares about Marathon. Nobody's like, oh yeah, dude, another extraction shooter. I really hope they pull that off. I mean, there are certainly people that probably think that, but not in great enough numbers. Because that's the question that Porsche fan asked. Didn't No Man's Sky go through similar hate backlash? Look where it is impossible for Marathon to go through the same thing. No, because nobody cares about Marathon to the degree that people cared about No Man's Sky. Hello Games shocked the world with their trailer and their claims. They did. They came out and said that they were building a game with 17 or whatever quintillion planets and procedural generation and space exploration and blah, blah, blah. And everyone said, I really want to play that. And then it launched and it was missing a bunch of stuff. It was very much stripped down from what people expected. 8 months to 12 months later, they had transformed the game. Here we are now 8 years later. They basically built No Man's Sky 2 inside of No Man's Sky. They built the sequel to the game within the dadgum game. Like, Hello Games deserve, buckets and buckets of flowers and credit and praise for what they've done. But it only really, at some level, worked because it was something that people wanted. Like, I don't think there's an army of people out there that are like, man, I really hope Marathon pulls it off. And if they make all the good changes and really add stuff, man, I'll go play that game until I die. I don't think so. Here's the real dilemma. No Man's Sky is not player funnel dependent either. Marathon is. Marathon's player dependent. You keep your flowers in buckets? I hate you so much. What do you mean? Have you ever gone to the store to buy flowers? I mean, I don't know. Probably not. But Zubair, they're typically in buckets when you go to the store. Yeah. That's an image I just readily have in my head. Buckets and buckets of flowers. You know. They're always in buckets. They're on the ground of the grocery store or the florist shop. That's just an easy way to store them. They get those 5-gallon buckets, they fill them with water, and they put the flowers in them. Back the truck up. Hello Games deserves, buckets and buckets of flowers for what they did. They deserve credit. I'll concede that one, as I don't know enough about buying flowers. That's not your area of expertise, right? Listen, Zubair, if I ever need help ordering a pizza, you're my guy. But flowers, not so much. All right, we got a question coming in here from, let's see. James Wolfgang submits a question. He says, if Bungie Destiny was in a better place, do you think it would have been better if Bungie did smaller AA style projects to experiment as one-off? If one pops off, that could be the new AAA. James, that's what they were doing, my friend. Homie, you need to go read the Pete Parsons. I'm not telling you, like, go read, idiot. No, I'm saying, like, you need to go read the blog that Pete Parsons posted about the layoffs. The reason the company ended up in the red is because they did what you're saying. I'm not actually saying your idea is a bad idea, by the way. Okay? I'm not saying your idea is a bad idea. What I'm saying is they did what you said and it didn't work out. And now I'm going to explain to you why, okay? So they spun up a bunch of incubation projects to give them away from Destiny. Those incubation projects took talent, time, vision, bandwidth, all of that away from Destiny 2. Destiny 2, understandably, started getting very copy-paste, very bland. There was an infamous clip of Glad, one of the, bigger Destiny streamers at the time, saying essentially that it's the same thing every time, it's the same NPC every time, like he went on this, big huge rant or whatever. And that was the beginning of Destiny 2's demand and interest going down. People felt like they were getting the short end of the stick. Well, because they were. Internally, Bungie was trying to figure out a way of doing what you're saying. They were going to try and place some smaller AA bets. Like Marathon is basically a AA game. It's like a 300-person group. It's not even ready for market. I mean, it's a dadgum alpha, but that's a AA bet that they were placing. So they had a game that Noseworthy and Luke Smith were spearheading. It was going to be in the Destiny universe. It was going to be like very Monster Hunter adjacent. You were not going to play as your own Guardian. You were going to play as heroes from the Destiny universe. I think it was going to be third person, okay? I think what they were doing is they were hoping to spin up these projects and put them out there and start having other revenue streams that were not Destiny 2. Because Destiny 2 was understandably, even though their decline was expeditiously self-inflicted, Destiny 2 was still going to decline. Like, we have to say this. Like, that's not... Destiny 2 declining is not an indictment of, like, Bungie's ability to do live service, even though people are trying to do that now. They're trying to act like 10 years of the game staying alive and relevant, well, they don't get any credit for that because it's starting to decline now. It was going to decline no matter what. It more expeditiously declined, and it was a self-inflicted form of decrease because they were moving people around to try to build other things. And listen, I'm removed from the situation, and I can remove all that bias and say, I actually totally understand what they were doing. At some level, I think what they were doing was smart. If you don't want to do Destiny 2 any longer, and you've internally determined that you don't want to do Destiny 3, you've got to figure out what the next era, what the next epoch of Bungie is. And they said, that's really tough. Instead of just choosing one thing to pivot to, like they went from Halo to Destiny, they decided to place a bunch of bets. And what it did was, it made their cash cow dry up too quickly, and then they were in trouble. So what'd they do? Laid people off, shut incubation projects down. PlayStation absorbed one of those incubation projects and absorbed 200 some odd employees, and they have spun up a studio called LFG, and they are in the process of working on that project. But the rest of them are basically probably going to get folded into Destiny 2, if I'm honest. Wolvie says, the gradual decline could have been stagnated if there would have been better decisions made at the top. I don't know if stagnated is an awkward word to use there. I think what you're saying is they could have slowed it down. I think that's my understanding of what you're saying, Wolvie. They could have slowed the decline down if they would have made better decisions. Hasim, with 2 months of memberships over here on Twitch. Thank you so much. 2 months, so glad I can support you here. Thank you so much for supporting me on Twitch. Thank you for using that Prime. I appreciate it very, very much. Twitch still in the lead handedly over YouTube today. The Fate Saga is Destiny 3 technically. Bungie wanted to just call it Destiny. We're basically starting over with power level, going to a new place, getting new abilities and armor rework. It's Destiny 3, but it's not called Destiny 3. So are you going to play Night Rain on PC Thursday? Or will you wait until Friday? You can play Night Rain on Thursday on PC? Guys, what a great turnout on both platforms today. Do me a quick favor, though, on YouTube. Make sure you guys are hitting the like button. Come in and go through the ritual, give it a thumbs up, and then you can go back to lurking and listening. That really helps me out. We need 50 likes right now, very quickly. We've only been streaming for about an hour, and you guys have been crushing it. Is Gummy Bear still happening? I believe that's one of the ones that has been handed over to Sony. Bungie came out and told us they would never hit the size of Forsaken. I feel that was the downfall of Bungie. Bungie needs to find a way to put all the deleted content, also refine and probably D1 content back into the game. I mean, there's technical limitations that would prevent them from doing that. I don't think you can shove an entire, other game into Destiny 2. I don't think they were lying when they said that they had to start vaulting stuff. I think the game was going to become unwieldy. It was going to become too big, not just from an install size standpoint, but from a from an engine standpoint. You have to have a game that is, manageable. They will say that the engine is not archaic. I don't believe them. Just like when they said this mythical former employee is the one that stole the artwork. Yeah, I don't believe them. They're a company with a history. Their history and their pattern of behavior is that they're liars. They're not honest. I don't trust them. So I think them sunsetting content and vaulting content was to try and avoid a lawsuit from the online writer. There have been people that have theorized that top reply. Again, I don't think they're honest, but I think the vaulting was necessary. I don't think that was made up. I think that was real. No, and they're trying to argue in that case that it's their story, and they're trying to use like YouTube videos and stuff to argue that it's their story. I think you guys are looking at that totally backwards. Them vaulting and getting rid of the Red War is hurting them in that court case. I don't think they did that thinking it would help them or protect them. If they did, it's backfiring in a pretty grand way. So, a question here from Ryan about Marathon, though. He says, do you think Marathon, if it releases, stays alive longer than Concord? I don't know. I think the real question would be, can they get enough streamers and sponsored streamers to sort of keep the game in the limelight for a month? I just don't know. Because at this point, content creators are going to have to measure the damage it would do to them to back the game and to play it. A lot of them are already distancing themselves from the game. Like the art theft is sort of the perfect scapegoat for people who were sort of like in the game's corner to suddenly be like, yeah, no. I'm not down with this game anymore. I'm not going to be playing this game. The art theft is kind of an easy way to not necessarily like morally grandstand, but to have a more concrete reason to not play. Because I think the game was going to come out and a lot of these guys were going to give it the old, what's the expression? The old college try or freshman try. What's the stupid expression? I can never remember the expression. I think they were going to have a go. The old college try, is that it? Yeah, they were going to give it the old college try. And so, they would have maybe played it for a week or two and then walked away. Now, I'm not saying a game's life is linked to streaming, but that is definitely going to play a role in a game like that. Like, if the streamers move on and aren't playing, then a lot of people are going to be like, yeah, the old paid-for try. Exactly. They'll all be sponsored streams. Is it true they only have 3 months to overhaul the entire game, or is Marathon officially canceled for good? We don't know. We just know that PlayStation has canceled all marketing plans, which makes sense because of the stolen art, but that could be, I think, a signal flare that the game is getting canceled. Did you see Scaro's recent video? No. I'm assuming he's changed his view of the game somewhat. Because, like, Scaro, Lupo, and I forget the other guy's name. He's got, like, an accent. They were all pretty big on it. They liked it. The guy with the accent, though, he was disappointed in the fact that they didn't really include any classic things from Marathon. He was hoping for a better tie-in to the original game. But he recently also has been like, I don't think this game has a prayer. I forget his name. He's still filled with copium. Who's filled with copium, Wolvie? I mean, according to you, I don't know who you're talking about. Isn't it pronounced Scaro? Or is it Scaro? I've always pronounced it Scaro. So delayed and no marketing, says Noob with a Gun. I have to agree that it's definitely a signal that it's canceled, or they're at least pondering it as damage control. You're having a hard time spelling today. There you go. Oh, no, you didn't. Yeah, Lupo's gone for a while, unfortunately. I don't know if it's unfortunately. I think he probably needs the break given what happened and how he handled it. It's, probably better for him, his mental health and his family, which is what he should be focusing on at this point after what happened. Yeah, that's it. Hidden Xperia. Yeah, Hidden Xperia was like, he enjoyed the game. He was a little annoyed that it was not more tied to Marathon. He was a little disappointed in that. Yeah. And even he sort of recently, I watched a video by him. I think he's pretty much like, yeah, I don't think this thing's in bad shape. This is bad, basically. It's ska, like the genre, Scaro. Oh, for frick's sake. Supposedly, Hunt and Tarkov players tried it and they weren't excited about it. You know what's funny about that? Noberto, is that when we first heard that, I said that was concerning, and folks were like, no, that's a good thing because it'll be different. You don't want it to appeal to them. And I was like, what? Then who's it going to appeal to? I watched Xperia for almost 8 years. He's a huge lore guy, and new Marathon did not connect at all. He seemed to have enjoyed his time with it, though. Like, he wasn't negative. He just expressed that disappointment that there was, like, no tie to the original game. He wasn't, like, bashing it. Maybe he was just trying to be polite, you know, because of getting to fly out and everything. He wasn't bashing it. I watched, you know, his initial content after the event, after the showcase. They need to wake up and go back to what they've always done better than others, says Ale. Games. We need good games, not live service. They are ruining PlayStation and ruin the trust it have with them. What you're saying doesn't make any sense. Bungie's had a successful live service game for 10 years. They need to go back to what exactly? What do you mean? They have been doing a successful live service game for a decade, and they're ruining PlayStation? How is PlayStation ruined exactly? What do you mean? What's ruined at PlayStation? The artist logo is all over the game. That's like me taking the Nike logo and saying it's my design for my next movie. Feels like a lot more people are looking forward to the end of Bungie due to the blatant plagiarism. Well, no, I think he is talking about PlayStation investing in live service. Oh. But PlayStation has not moved away from single-player games and big tentpole titles. They've increased their funding in the single-player tentpole titles to a higher number than it's ever been. And then they also increased their funding into live service. It's not an either-or. It's a both-and. People keep messing this up, and they think it's an either-or. They think because Bungie allocated funds... I'm sorry, not Bungie. They think because PlayStation allocated funds to live service that they took funding away from single-player or tentpole titles. That is simply untrue. If you look historically at their investments into their titles, the single-player tentpole investment is the highest it has ever been historically. They increased it to a higher level. It's like double what it was. I think 2019, if you compare, it's like double. Oh, well, the cost of games and studios has gone up and blah, blah. Okay, maybe, but double in like 5 or 6 years? I don't feel like it's this either or. They either what's going on? Well, what do you get? Oh, you guys are talking about something else. They took time, money, and developers for live service. Games that will fail. Look at Concord. Right, but PlayStation's also looking at the success of Gran Turismo 7 and MLB The Show and Helldivers 2, and they know there's good money to be made in live service. You're thinking too rigidly about this. They've always used to make quality single-player experiences. You mean like Demon Souls Remake, Returnal, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart? You mean like those? You mean like Spider-Man 2, God of War Ragnarok? Do you mean like Horizon Forbidden West? Do you mean like Stellar Blade and Final Fantasy 16? Like those games? Like this year, Lost Soul Aside and Death Stranding 2 and Ghost of Yotei? Those games? Like Intergalactic, Saros, Wolverine, Phantom Blade Zero? Do you mean like those games? What do you mean? They've not moved away from those titles at all. They have had, like, add up, you know, Astrobot as well, throw it in there. How many big single-player tentpole games have they released this gen in the last 5 years versus the live service games that they've released? It's not even a competition. It's not even a competition. They've released way more big tentpole single-player games than they've released live service games. They've released more remasters and remakes than they've released live service games. They have. Think about it. Look at their commitment to single player. They don't just launch new games. They also did the Demon's Souls remake, The Last of Us Part 1 remake, The Last of Us Part 2 remaster, Horizon Zero Dawn remaster, and then Days Gone remaster. They've done 5 remasters or remakes. That's more than live service games. The rewriting of history doesn't make any sense to me. So they have this laundry list of single-player tentpole titles. They have 5 remakes or remasters of single-player tentpole titles, and they've done MLB The Show, which is an annual commitment and licensed game. That's live service. They've done Gran Turismo 7. They've done Helldivers 2. And then, Foam Stars was Square Enix. That was not something that they were doing. That wasn't from their studios. They did Concord. And Marathon is not a PlayStation effort. That is something that Bungie was working on before the acquisition. Bungie was acquired and allowed to operate independently, meaning that has nothing to do with PlayStation's live service efforts. Marathon is not one of their initiatives. It's a Bungie initiative that PlayStation inherited when they bought them, but they weren't like, hey, make Marathon and make an extraction shooter. Yo, Big Red Gus just did a Prime sub on Twitch. Thank you very, very much. And he extends Twitch's lead 50-27. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, when you actually add the titles up, what you're saying doesn't even make any sense. There's not some measurable pivot to live service where, like, yeah, they're just not doing single player games anymore. The single player games, the remasters and the remakes of single player games significantly outnumber the number of live service games that they've brought to market, even if you include the canceled games. Ben Studio canceled 1, Bluepoint canceled 1, and then you've got Concord, and then you have Helldivers 2, Gran Turismo 7, MLB The Show. Even if you include the canceled games, it's still far more a far more healthier cadence of single-player tentpole titles than live service titles. They hope to follow on the big money of games like Fortnite and company, and in the meantime, developers waste time and money for nothing. See, you're not engaging in a conversation. You're not allowing any of the new information to inform what you think. You're just coming in and saying parroted talking points that you want to make it seem like PlayStation is stupid and doesn't know what they're doing. Have you seen the success of Helldivers 2? Did you look at the numbers recently? They're hitting like a 250,000 concurrent players in Helldivers 2. That's live service success. That's motivating them to do more. That's money. And XCal gifts a member over here on YouTube and bumps the line to 79 and a $2 super chat tip from with Dre Day. Says Jim Ryan single-handedly ruined Sony's first party. That isn't true and doesn't make any sense. I don't understand why you guys say stuff like this. It doesn't make any sense to me. Are you just baiting clips? Like, let me guess. It's a negative Bungie, negative Marathon day, and you're like, well, that doesn't fit with the Sony pony narrative. He's bashing a company that's owned by PlayStation. He's bashing a game that's coming from a PlayStation studio. That won't fit the narrative. I've got an idea. We'll go in and we'll disrupt everything and talk about how PlayStation sucks and is terrible, because when he pushes back on things that we say that are false, then we can get our clips to make him look like a pony. Like, is that your goal today? You're a bit too fanboyish. How am I fanboyish? By stating facts. I listed all of the big single-player tentpole titles that have come out this gen. I numbered the remakes and remasters that are greater numbered than the live service games they've launched this gen. Even if you include the canceled live service games, there are still way more single-player tentpole titles this gen from PlayStation than live service games. You're not speaking in reality. You're not speaking in facts. It's fanboy delusion, and what you do is you come in, you say these things. When I correct them, you then interpret it as I'm being the fanboy. Homie, you're locked in here with me. I'm not locked in here with you. You're still fighting a console war, and I'm not. I'm simply stating facts. I'm like, if you're upset about PlayStation's live service efforts because you think it's like a waste of money, like, okay. But again, quantitatively, you have not received like some small amount of single player games this gen as they out here just throw away money on live service. Also, I would think that fans of Helldivers 2, Gran Turismo 7, and MLB The Show are perfectly happy with the fact that PlayStation's portfolio of offerings is not just another single-player game. Right? Like, there are plenty of people playing Helldivers 2 right now that are probably glad that they aren't just doing nothing but single-player games. They're doing other game types. Same with MLB The Show. Same with Gran Turismo 7. Those are all very successful games. He made them make 12 live service games. There can't be. Now you're just speaking in falsehood. He didn't make them do anything. That is a lie. There was an increase in budgetary spending for live service games, and they allow studios to pitch live service games to then bring them to the market. Nobody was forced to do anything. That's another lie propagated by people that are interested in a console war that's over. There is no narrative here of like Jim Ryan ruined PlayStation or he forced people to make live service games. You're just saying things that aren't true. It's just a waste of time in the hopes, I guess, to get a clip. I'll get irritated and I'll get flippant, and then you can say Reforge Gaming crashes out defending Sony. Like, oh, okay, wow. How many times are we going to do this before you realize it's just an exercise in futility and delusion? A $10 super chat from Andre. Sometimes you just can't reason with NPCs. That's literally what some of you guys have become. You've just become NPCs. You have limited dialogue options, and that's all you have to throw out. Like, I truly don't get it. What's the point? You know what you're saying isn't true. When it gets falsified, you just resort to saying that I'm being a fanboy? So falsifying your claims is being a fanboy. Okay. I'm a fanboy of the truth. You don't seem to be. That's the only thing I'm a fanboy of. I don't stand for falsehood. It's just not interesting to me. It isn't. I know it drives clicks and you can rage bait people dealing in half-truths and exaggeration, but like, that's boring. It's pointless. 2 months from Vapor on Twitch. 2 months in a row. All they have are narrative out of context clips, bro. I just don't concern myself with dishonest clowns. I just don't. They're not a concern of mine. And then when you guys come in here and do this, it's like it's so obvious. I can smell the stink on you. It's like I know what you're doing. It's like, oh, we have labeled this guy a dyed-in-the-wool, defend Sony till the end pony, and when he's critical of anything PlayStation does, you losers always show up and do this. You super chat, you come in on alts, and you try to invoke like really idiotic talking points, trying to bait me so that when I falsify them, well, now we've got a clip. Oh, Marathon's on the brink of destruction, and Reforge Gaming is defending Sony. Like, it's so predictable. It's like every single time I've been critical of PlayStation over the last couple of years, you pathetic fanboys come in and do this. It's just embarrassing at this point. It's like, it's so predictable. We've got to bait him into false. Like, what you do is so manipulative. They'll make a false claim about PlayStation, knowing that I'll falsify the claim, and then they get to clip it and say he's defending Sony instead of talking about Marathon. It's so dadgum predictable. Copycat Prime comes in with 5 members over here on Twitch. Thank you very much. And then it's going to go up to 86, though, because a single came in from Stone Spire over here on YouTube. And then Grady renewed their membership. Thanks to whoever gifted me this morning. I usually pay for my own. Keep up the great work. Thank you, Grady. For NPCs. Like clockwork, for the last couple of years, anytime I've covered PlayStation in a negative way, these guys show up. They're always a gray name that I don't recognize, and they end up running stupid narrative points that they know I'm going to disagree with, so then they can all run to Twitter and snivel and be like, oh yeah, he's defending Sony, instead of talking about the negative things. And it's like, I've been streaming for an hour and 28 minutes, and we've been talking about how terrible this is, how poorly managed Bungie is, how PlayStation's going to have to step in, how PlayStation's probably pretty strongly motivated to just cancel this. They can't have another game come out and flop like Concord. To me, I think that's the only choice. I don't think you can go into showcase season, and I've said I've got a game coming. I've got a video coming this afternoon about how I think all hope is lost. I walk through a bunch of the things that have transpired and a bunch of the things that we have heard, and I'm like, dude, all hope's lost. This project and this studio are in bad shape. This project and this studio are in bad shape. I'm definitely disappointed with the games released by Sony on PS5. I always lean to PlayStation when it comes to consoles. This generation is just boring. Yeah, I can already guess what you're going to say if I start asking you about the games that you've played. You're probably a PC guy. I feel like I've had this conversation before where someone's like, yeah, it's been very disappointing. And then we'll learn that you're basically a PC guy who, for whatever reason, bought a PlayStation but has been bored the entire gen. And I don't know what you would have. I honestly don't know what you were looking for. If Returnal, Ratchet, Horizon, God of War, and Spider-Man weren't good enough, and then all the other deals that they had with like Stellar Blade, Final Fantasy, Helldivers 2, even Astrobot, if none of that was good enough, I don't know what you were looking for. I really don't. I truly have no idea where your expectations were. Thank you for 21 months. Gok2277 over here on Twitch just started a hype train on Twitch. We are exactly 13 members away from the first 100 of the week. And remember, whoever hits it gets it. YouTube hasn't snagged a single one today. Twitch has stolen all 3 of them. Every 25, I give 5. Yo, it's good, Gamer Boy. If anything, Sony was the one that got duped by Bungie. I actually talk about that in my video this afternoon. Like, my opinion of that's changed a little bit. I argue in the video, you guys have to wait and watch it, that I feel like Bungie kind of scammed. I feel like I do. I feel like they tried to pull a bit of a scam here. Like, you get purchased on the rise and the apex of Destiny, and then you're basically like, whew, thank you. Now we can let Destiny die and retire, because we've been basically purchased and protected and funded by somebody else. I didn't like God of War. Helldivers was okay. I have a PC, but I'm the PS2 guy. Yeah, I mean, and at some level, Maxwell, you have to see, maybe it's not PlayStation that's out of step. With you, it's that you're out of step with PlayStation. Like, PlayStation continued to do and lean into the franchises that were incredibly successful in PS4. I don't know why you would have expected them to not do that. I think it's a you problem. Like, I can't imagine walking into the PS5 era and being like, oh, I'm so shocked that they're doing sequels to games that were insanely successful and highly praised, but also doing cool things like Returnal, and Astrobot. And getting good deals with games like, Stellar Blade and Helldivers 2. Like, that's a you problem. I don't know why you walked into the PS5 gen and didn't think, well, yeah, of course we're going to get a sequel to Horizon and God of War and Spider-Man. Like, you know what I mean? And Gran Turismo. And Vapor gifts a member over here on Twitch, and he bumps a little hype train for Twitch and gets us to 88. Thank you so much. Those singles go a long way. Astrobot was overrated. Didn't find it that great. It was okay, but no game of the year. Maybe if you are a super fan of that genre. I mean, you don't have to like it and think it was game of the year, but it captivated everybody. It was refreshing. It was fun. It was the game that got the most universal praise that year. That's kind of how it goes. There are plenty of people who don't like Baldur's Gate 3 because of the genre, and it just doesn't vibe with them. But it was undeniable that it was the game of the year. It was political too. I'm going to regret asking this. Astrobot was political? Are you serious, Clark? Like, Astrobot? Why not Black Myth? Black Myth was clearly not Game of the Year. It was one of the lowest scored Game of the Year nominated games in history. AAA politics? Huh? Yo, 2 singles come in from Stone Spire. I thought he was going to do that. I was like, we're really close to 90. We are exactly a 10 bomb away from 100. Wait, what's going on here with the total? 30 and 53 is 83. I'm missing 7 in the total. It doesn't make any sense. I must not have added some. Yeah, Black Myth was not robbed. That notion is so ridiculous. Yo, what's good? Kicking it with Timmy B. That notion is ridiculous. Black Myth Wukong was not at all in the same hemisphere of the other games that were nominated and praised. People thought because it sold like crazy, it should have just automatically won. They were doing some stupid, weird culture war fight over it because of IGN's dumb hit piece that they wrote. And everybody wanted to suddenly make it like Black Myth was a win against the Wokies. And it was idiotic. That game was fine. It performed like garbage on console because of how they utilized frame gen. And it was not a Game of the Year contender. It wasn't. I always said that it was going to be a Game of the Year contender. I was in its corner, and then it released. And then it got reviewed. And it is one of the lowest scored Game of the Year nominated games in history. It's incredibly rare for a game that low to get nominated. It's rare. You're going up against games in the low 90s, upper 80s. There were games with far more praise, far more universal praise than Black Myth. There was the Prince of Persia game. There was the Like a Dragon game. There were plenty of games that got better scores and better reception than Black Myth Wukong. They should have been honored to get the nomination. They really should have been. And I don't know. If you look at the reviews, if you look at the reception, if you look at how it's sold, this always gets clipped out of context. Everybody always wants to boast about the sales when like 80 to 90% of the sales are in one region of the world. It's not some global phenomenon. It was popular and did well, but come on. That's just, it's disingenuous to be like, oh my gosh, this is a worthy of Game of the Year game. Okay. And what's hilarious about this is, you know, the PlayStation guys, the ponies, they were acting like this was some giant win for PlayStation. I don't know how that squares with your narrative that I'm some kind of a pony. Like, I've been harsh on Black Myth since day one, you know. You can't deny that all the live service race of Sony is not good for PlayStation. Yes, I can deny that because they've had incredibly successful live service games with Gran Turismo 7, MLB The Show, and Helldivers 2. They have had big successes. Concord was an acquisition that blew up in their face, of course. Firewalk was a disaster. They had toxic positivity. They kept things very secretive. And now they've canceled other games. And I think that's to their credit. You do know that Shuhei Yoshida, after leaving and even before he left PlayStation, said that they cancel games all the time. The canceled games are not an indication that they're like, oh, this has been bad for PlayStation and they've somehow failed. Like, I just think that is something that you've determined. And when everybody says, oh no, you can't deny this assertion that I'm arguing, you haven't argued in support of it at all. You haven't shown any facts, any statistics. You haven't. You've just stated it. You just asserted, oh, it's been bad for PlayStation. You can't deny that. What do you mean? Why can't I deny that? Everybody is going for the live service dollar. Everybody. They've got shareholders that would probably be asking them why they're not going for the live service dollar. And they've had some pretty big successes in the live service environment. And they've had some failures. There's no way to be like, no, you can't deny it's been bad for them. I don't know. I think they learned a valuable lesson in that you should not allow your single-player studios to work on live service. I think that's why Bend and Bluepoint had their projects canceled. I think they're better off coming alongside studios like Arrowhead and having a studio that's more equipped and more accustomed to and used to doing live service than a single-player studio. They canceled one after the other. Concord made a big bang, and you want to deny it's not good for them, you're creating a false dichotomy. A game flopping and canceling, you're like, well, it's obviously not good for them, so therefore it's bad for them. Yeah, it was bad for them, but that's not what you originally stated. You can say that Concord failing was bad for PlayStation. That is true. But saying, oh, them going after live service, you can't deny it's been bad for them. I don't know, that's too sweeping. That's too big of a statement to make. They're probably very pleased with Helldivers 2. The game's been out for a year and a half, and they're hitting like 250,000 concurrent player numbers. That game is making money for them. They're probably very pleased with that. The operational cost and the marketing and the publishing dollars that went into Helldivers 2 has been absolutely dwarfed by the money that they've made. Did you finish Wukong? No, it's a pile of crap on console. People that defend that game's performance on console, I don't understand why they do that. We've had nothing but excellence from PlayStation first-party studios in the realm of performance for games on the PlayStation 5 as well as the Pro. And Wukong is an embarrassment. It's every other frame is fake. It's a 30 FPS game, and they use frame gen to double the frames. Like, nobody should defend that. Nobody. Nobody should defend that. Yeah, I will always concede, but Helldivers is one game in all caps. Yeah, Concord is one game in all caps. Also, what about Gran Turismo 7? What about MLB The Show? Those are also very successful live service franchises beneath the PlayStation live service banner. Factions, Concord, Marathon, Fair Games, dangerous recipe for losing billions. I think invoking factions is a joke, and you know it is, Paul, because it didn't come out, and Naughty Dog made the right choice to not completely change their studio. That was a Naughty Dog effort. That was not a PlayStation-initiated effort. Go back to when they announced it, and then go back to when Jim Ryan did his announcement. That was something that Naughty Dog decided to do. And then Naughty Dog got educated on, you're not equipped to do this. You'll have to become a live service studio. Concord, yes. Marathon, again, you are being intellectually dishonest by invoking Marathon. Marathon has nothing to do with PlayStation's live service efforts. It is a Bungie initiative that was started 7 years ago, and Bungie was acquired and allowed to operate independently. So you can't lay that at their feet either. And yes, Fair Games is why I've been saying cancel Fair Games. You're not going to bring a competitive heist game to market and make it compelling. Nobody's going to play that in a grand enough number for it to be successful. So yeah, canceling games though, but they cancel games all the time. So according to your logic then, they've been in a terrible state for years because according to Shuhei Yoshida, they cancel games all the time. If we're going to take canceled games as evidence that they're failing and they've damaged their company, then they've been doing that for years. You don't need live service games to argue that. They do internal assessment of games, and they've been doing it for a very long time, and then they cancel them if they're not going to make it, if they don't think it's the right call. So they buy Bungie. Bungie does that. Bungie's supposed to comb over games. They get onboarded. They comb over Last of Us Online. They've got questions about longevity. Naughty Dog gets an education in what it'll take to do live service, and they decide not to do it. And then in the wake of Concord failing, they cancel Blue Point's game. They cancel Ben's game. This is what they do. They cancel games. They cancel games that they don't think are going to make it. So, invoking Marathon is disingenuous. It is. It was not something that they initiated. It wasn't something that they pushed for. In invoking factions, again, that was Naughty Dog's internal choice that they made, and because PlayStation purchased Bungie, Naughty Dog was spared embarrassment. That game wasn't going to last. Maybe Last of Us Online was good, but also that canceled. Naughty Dog canceled that themselves. This is why I get so tired of this, because everybody is being really intellectually flimsy with this, and we're just moving categories. Factions was canceled by Naughty Dog. Shuhei Yoshida just corroborated this recently. They were told, if you're going to do that, your studio would need to be all hands on deck to support it. And Naughty Dog says, we don't want to do that. We're working on Intergalactic. We're working on another thing over here. They're a single-player studio. Naughty Dog canceled that game. If PlayStation would not have purchased Bungie, they would have walked The Last of Us Online out into the market, and it would have failed. It would have. Why? They were not equipped to support it. Everybody wants to smuggle all these other games in because nobody wants to have the nuanced discussion. That's more difficult. That's more difficult. Guaranteed, everything I'm saying will be interpreted, clipped, reacted to as Sony Pony won't take the L on live service or something like that. Listen, if you can't have nuance in this discussion, we can't come to any conclusions. We're going to dismiss MLB The Show, Gran Turismo 7, and Helldivers 2, and then we're going to smuggle in all these other things. You're going to smuggle in Factions, a choice that Naughty Dog made on their own when developing The Last of Us Part 2, and they canceled on their own because they were informed by an acquisition that Sony did and spared them the embarrassment of launching a game they were ill-equipped to support. But you want to include that in the discussion? Yeah, PlayStation's live service efforts, they're stupid and Jim Ryan ruined the company. What does that have to do with it? That was something Naughty Dog did on their own. And then Marathon, again, that's a Bungie initiative. They've been working on some semblance of Marathon since 2018. They get acquired. They're allowed to just continue working independently, and you want to lay Marathon at PlayStation's feet. It wasn't their initiative. It wasn't their call. They didn't do it. They didn't say, oh yeah, make Marathon. It's a recipe for losing billions. Yes, financially, from a publishing stance, and again, it's not a recipe for losing billions when they canceled Factions, Paul. So you don't get to invoke that one in your original statement. Your original statement was you included fair games. No, I'm sorry, Factions. You included Factions. You don't get to include Factions. They canceled it. They were spared the potential loss of billions because they stopped and said this isn't going to work. If they would have pressed on, yes, they would have lost a ton of money on Factions. Guaranteed. And then it would have caused brand damage to The Last of Us. And the TV show's doing a bang-up job of that in Season 2. Morons. But you don't get to include Factions in that. You can include Concord. You can. You can include fair games if it comes to market. But Marathon? How is PlayStation losing billions if Marathon comes out and flops? How? Where are the billions that they're losing? Where are you invoking this from? And how much money did they lose when they cancel all these single player games that we never hear about? Shuhei Yoshida says they cancel games all the time. According to you, that's a recipe for losing billions. Well, then how are they even open? If they cancel games all of the time, then they're losing billions all of the time. From Bungie itself? Yes, but the acquisition of Bungie, that again is so intellectually dishonest. That's so disingenuous to act like the acquisition of Bungie, Marathon is the entire kit and caboodle. Like, yeah, if Marathon fails, flops, or is canceled, PlayStation lost billions on Bungie. What the frick? That doesn't even make any sense. It's like a 300-person project. And PlayStation, meanwhile, has absorbed like 200 people from Bungie and spun up a new studio and got an incubation project out of it. It's not all loss until we get the full numbers on it. I mean, if they basically get to take over Bungie, strip it down to the studs, rebuild, and also get to keep Destiny as an IP, I don't think they're going to look at a $2 billion acquisition. There was an extra $1 billion to retain talent. So the actual acquisition for Bungie was estimated and valued at $2 billion, and then they do the $1 billion so that people stay. Some of that might not even get paid in the final amortized payment because a lot of people aren't there anymore, or people are getting fired and laid off. So not all of that money might not even be paid. So that's what I'm saying. It's so intellectually dishonest. It's so lacking of nuance to be like, yep, PlayStation's live service efforts are in a shambles. It's a disaster. The company's losing billions. And you start citing projects that have nothing to do with PlayStation and their live service efforts. And meanwhile, we're just going to ignore Helldivers 2, MLB The Show, and Gran Turismo 7. The only one you can really pinpoint and say they lost money on was Concord. But then that also gets dishonest because people want to invoke the 400 million number, which is funding that Firewalk procured outside of PlayStation and has nothing to do with PlayStation. That's why these conversations are so difficult to have, because there's so much falsehood and dishonesty and weird slants in the mix. It's like nobody can find the actual reality because it's like you're just going to lump everything together. Yep. Factions, Marathon, Concord, yeah, those are all on PlayStation. And it's like, if you were more dishonest, you'd just be like, I don't know. Don't bite my tongue. That's just dishonest. It is. It's not an honest take. It's not an honest measurement of what has happened and what has transpired. What are you saying, William? Destiny 2 definitely contributed to ROI. Yeah, lest we forget that Destiny 2 is still generating a lot of money. Destiny Rising is probably generating a lot of money as a mobile game. You can't just be like, oh yeah, all that money, all that revenue coming in doesn't count for anything. Also, Bungie got into the red and laid people off. Why? To protect profit margins. So if they're still operating at profit, then that's ROI for Sony as well, that everybody's just ignoring. Employee salaries for years is a loss of a canceled game? Not necessarily. If the overall operating cost of Bungie is below revenue, then it's a profitable company, and PlayStation is yielding ROI on the investment of the purchase. It's not that simple, Vithar. You can't walk in and slice out one Excel sheet and be like, well, how much were we paying those 300 people to work the last couple of years? That's all a loss. No, if the entire operation cost of Bungie is profitable, then you're not in some red line situation where PlayStation's bleeding cash because of the acquisition. Again, there's so many levels to this. That's why you can't listen to these armchair buffoons who are like, yep, PlayStation's taking the L. They don't know what they're doing. And yeah, they've lost billions and millions on all these live service efforts. That'll get you clicks on YouTube, and that'll certainly get you engagement on Twitter using my face and clips of me talking about it. But you're not actually dealing in analysis of the situation. You're dealing in clickbait, like soundbite culture about something that is incredibly complex. Answer me this. If it was such an L and such a massive financial loss for PlayStation, why in the blue frick would they absorb 200 some odd people and spin up a studio? Why? Riddle me that, Batman. Why would they do that? Wouldn't you just send all those people packing and be like, let's just get operation costs down? This has just been a giant L. No, obviously that's not the case, because they clearly have the capital to spin up a studio and absorb like 200 people. But it's an L, and they suck, and they're losing, and they're failing because, you know, you watch, I guess, bleed green content creators that need some kind of a W after PlayStation has done nothing but win this gen and post record earnings and record growth and new MAU records. Like all of that, we just ignore that. We're like, yeah, but the live service stuff, though. Well, are you getting a nuanced assessment about what happened? Are you getting a breakdown of everything they've done, invested in, or procured from this investment? No, you're just, well, Concord flopped and Marathon's going to flop, so LL PlayStation. And it's like, there's so much more to this. It's so much more complex than that. Hang on, what'd you say, William? Team LFG will probably be successful because family-friendly games are desired in the PlayStation market to draw away from Nintendo. If that's successful, that will help them have ROI. Marathon will be shadow dropped in January or February after the final reveal stream. No matter what, it still gives them about 3 months. Why are you saying that, Harry? No, I have not touched Destiny since February of 2021. Richie, who, I'm sorry, I missed your $1.50 super chat, and then another $1 super chat came in. I'm sorry about that, Richie. No, I have not touched Destiny since February of 2021. I have no interest in playing that game. I remember there was a time where I started tweeting again, and somebody said, you know, this guy's really trying to get back into this community. I'd rather crawl over broken glass than ever be a part of that community of streamers or content creators again. You know what I mean? I'd punch myself in the face repeatedly before ever wanting to be back with that community. And I put community in quotes. It's not much of a community. So, no. Zero desire to play that game or be anywhere near any of those folks. If Marathon's not canceled, I'll be shocked. I've said for a while I think it gets delayed and then it gets indefinitely shelved. They'll just quietly cancel it. I think it makes more sense to quietly cancel it. That's what I think. Like a formal, I said earlier this morning that I could see them announcing this week it's canceled. Rip the Band-Aid off, right? Get it out of the frame and out of the conversation. Let it be a distant memory so that when you go into showcase season, all of the PlayStation announcements are kind of like, that's in our rear view. You know, Marathon's in our rear view. I could also be compelled that they would want to quietly cancel it. They would want to quietly cancel it. Basically, we're going to delay it and we're going to assess all that needs to happen and we'll keep you abreast of the situation. We'll let you guys know the next time you can play, do a test or blah, 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 blah. And then in a year, it'll just be like quietly canceled with a tweet. You know what I mean? I could be compelled that they might think a quiet cancellation is better because at least it gives the appearance of we're going to figure this out, we're going to work on this, and then eventually people just forget and don't care. Like a year from now, no one's going to care anymore. They're going to be like, oh yeah, Marathon. Like I think both are potential options that PlayStation could take. They're the publisher. They could step in and say, this thing is stinking up the room and showcase season's around the corner. We got games to announce and games to ship, and we're not letting you step in front of, you know, the picture frame here, whether it's Lost Soul Aside as one of their first major efforts in the China Hero project in an effort to grow in the Chinese market. You've got Death Stranding 2, and you've got Ghosts of Yotei. These are all, I think, pretty pivotal and important efforts from PlayStation. You got to get Marathon out of the frame. You get out of here. And canceling or delaying achieves that to a certain degree, I think. PlayStation only needs 2 more good live service games to reach their goals. They needed 3, and they got 1 with Helldivers, 2. With Horizon Multiplayer, Dark Outlaw, People Can Fly, and Team LFG, I have faith. I have way more faith once they move away from single-player studios taking a crack at live service. I think that's incredibly stupid. I think they learned their lesson. I think having Bend and Bluepoint cancel their live service efforts was a good call, because that's not what those studios should be working on. It's probably, I would hazard a guess, it's not their area of expertise. It's not. They'll launch it just like Concord, and if player counts prove to be low or microtransactions not helping, then they'll pull it. No, I don't think that PlayStation wants to do that again. Listen, if that game comes out, I would be really shocked that we don't find out later, like a Jason Schreier autopsy, that there was some kind of a contractual obligation. I think PlayStation right now has a lot of reasons to cancel it. Okay, think beyond this year. This year is a good year for PlayStation. I think so. I think you've got a China Hero Project game, you got a Kojima exclusive, and then you got a Sucker Punch sequel. That's a great year. In my book, that's a great year. If you don't think that's enough, that's fine. I think that's enough. Okay? Next year, we know for certain we've got Saros and Phantom Blade Zero, with the potential of Wolverine showing up, Intergalactic. There's also the potential surprise Venom game somewhere along the lines. In PlayStation's recent earnings call, they predicted an increase in first-party units this fiscal period. I don't know how you do that, given that Helldivers 2 sold so well. So maybe they have something else up their sleeve. The point is, that's a lot of property, that's a lot of games, that's a lot of stuff on the horizon, and you don't want Marathon in the conversation. Because as much as I'd like to slice it and say, this is really on Bungie, the public doesn't see it that way. The public sees Marathon as another PlayStation studio. Oh, is Bungie the publisher? Somebody said this morning in chat that PlayStation was the publisher. Bungie is the publisher on Steam. Has that changed, Paul, recently? Is PlayStation basically like, we're not publishing this anymore? Is Bungie going to have to publish it themselves? I thought Sony was the publisher. So wait. They acquired Bungie, and Bungie is operating at that level of independence that they're still operating as their own publisher? That game's still coming out, boys. That game is still coming out. Ain't no way. Bungie is going to push that thing out. 100%. I am very confident that they still push that thing out. I think the leadership has ulterior motives here. I think there's something else going on. The whole thing, it smelled fishy from jump. But I'm here to tell you, I thought for certain that PlayStation was going to be in the position of. Now, in my video, I speculate. I'm like, I don't know if PlayStation has the ability to do this, but if they do, I would think they're going to want to cancel this dadgum thing or delay it. This morning, somebody said that PlayStation was the publisher, so we just went forward with that as like headcanon. We're like, oh, well, PlayStation's the publisher. I think PlayStation will announce that it is done. They're gonna cancel it or delay it this week. If they're not the publisher, that completely changes the conversation. I think Bungie leadership has this very, very weird, like, there is something going on. There is something very odd going on with respect to, like, if it comes out, it's somehow tied to the payment. Somehow, I think it's tied to that final amortized payment. Yeah, contractual shenanigans. Hang on. Okay. SIE is not the publisher of any Bungie game. Bungie is a subsidiary of the parent company, Sony, not SIE. Okay, well, that makes the people trying to pin this on PlayStation, it makes their take even dumber. Like, it was dumb under the guise of like, well, I think PlayStation's publishing it, but I think they allow Bungie to operate independently. If PlayStation isn't even publishing it, laying this at Sony's feet and their live service efforts is absolutely idiotic. Like, there's no reason to put this or pin this on PlayStation whatsoever. It's a Bungie game through and through. From its head to its toes, down to the bone marrow, this is on Bungie. It has nothing to do with PlayStation. PlayStation's not even publishing it. You think Bungie can publish all future games? No idea. Yo, Sorcerer jumping back in with 6 months of memberships. We have been dangling in front of that 100 milestone. Whoever hits it gets it. And Twitch has taken every single milestone today. They took the 25, 50, and the 75. Sony still bought Bungie because of their live service expertise. If that expertise becomes a joke, mocking Sony's okay. What would make their expertise become a joke, though? Because they can still tell you, how did Destiny 2 survive for 10 years? What were the moments it almost died? What were the moments that it was soaring? What were the moments that the downturn happened? What did you do when the downturn happened? Like, why does all that information suddenly become invalid if there's a downturn in Destiny? I need people to make sense of that for me. You don't think Bungie can speak to, oh yeah, I mean, there were moments where Destiny almost died. You don't think that's valuable to any live service company? You don't think it's valuable to think through, well, we want our game to last 3 to 5 years. Okay, you need a transitional strategy then. You need a bandwidth allocation transitional strategy. What is your studio going to do when you enter those final years? Bungie can speak to that. Bungie can speak to the highs, the lows, the cliff's edge that they were on in February of 2018. How is that not valuable? I don't get that. Bungie is suddenly a joke. They know nothing. They've done nothing because of like right now. Everything else is gone and evaporated into thin air. None of that history matters. You don't know the unique type of brain pain that I experience having to defend Bungie. I wish y'all knew. It's like an ice pick behind my eyeballs that for weeks now, you make me defend Bungie. Of all companies, you make me defend Bungie. If you're trying to build a live service game, these are the guys you want to talk to. You want to talk to them. They've been through the trenches. They've been through the war. Bungie was great for years, but when you see how Marathon was handled, how many projects they canceled, are they really still the experts? But you'd have to assess why. What do you think? Time erased. Why do you think they spun up all those incubation projects? Why do you think they weren't going to do Destiny 3? What's your assessment of what they were doing? Make an assessment of the company. Did they just became idiots overnight, or were they doing something with a business strategy in mind? Make an assessment. Why were they not doing Destiny 3, and why did they spin up a bunch of incubation projects? What was the reason? Their expertise hasn't benefited PlayStation yet. Completely and utterly false. Naughty Dog was spared embarrassment and a wasted effort and wasted marketing dollars. Naughty Dog was spared probably millions of dollars in loss. Millions. The marketing efforts and the marketing spend to get that game out the door and to get the contracts and to get the people talking about it and get the celebrities talking about it, to act like their expertise hasn't benefited PlayStation is ignorant. Like that is so ignorant. They literally were the reason that Naughty Dog didn't ship a game that was a non-starter. Walking in the room and telling a single player game, you don't have the bandwidth for this. You don't think that benefited? That's one of their icons. Naughty Dog's one of the icons of PlayStation. Speculative and unfounded? What's speculative and unfounded? I forgot to thank Catwalk for his VIP. 27 months. 92 on the day. Or on the week, I should say. They wanted to flesh out their portfolio and diversify their audience, but the leadership stretched them way too thin and wasted so many resources. I agree. Bungie's like having an OG who can tell you when you're about to make a mistake. TLU Online would have been great. No way to know that. They only canceled it for Intergalactic. False. Garrett, you're striking out, my man. You are striking out. Number one, TLU Online would have been great. Really? How would it have been great if they didn't have the bandwidth to support it? That assertion makes no sense to me. The studio behind the project comes out and says, we would have had to have become a live service studio. We didn't want to do that. And you're like, yeah, but it could have been great. How? Launching it and not supporting it and not having the bandwidth to keep it going, and then it sputters out and dies? How is that great? What? How is that great? That would have been terrible for the studio and the IP. You guys have got to let that one go. You guys have got to let that one go. Last of Us Online was spared, and Naughty Dog was spared because Bungie gave him a wake-up call. There's no other way to see that. There's no other way to see that. Experts walked into the room and said, so you guys have been doing single-player games for a long time. Uncharted, Last of Us, you're working on something called Intergalactic. You don't have a clue what it takes to do live service. How is that not a benefit? I don't get that one at all. That there is so much presumption based in that position, it couldn't be more flimsy. It's a wet piece of paper. It's like there's no strength to that position. You have to presume that the game would have been good. You have to presume that it would have been fun. You have to presume it would have had good re-engagement patterns. You have to presume that they would have been able to support it with a small team. You have to presume that it wouldn't have pulled away from other big titles and other profitable efforts by the company, as we've seen with Bungie, what happens when you split up your bandwidth. That's a checkmate. You cannot sit here and invoke Bungie slicing off bandwidth and seeing the harm that it did to Destiny 2 and act like The Last of Us Online had a prayer. You can't maintain both positions. If you look at what Bungie has done, if you look at what it did to Destiny 2, you have all the proof in the world that Factions was dead on arrival. Destiny 2 is a long-standing live service game, and all it took was for Bungie to limit the bandwidth that game got and do spin-up incubation projects, and it hurt Destiny significantly, and it drove the company into the red. But a single-player studio surely can just spin up a live service game and spit it out into the market and support it. Bungie gave them first-hand, on-the-ground knowledge. You can't do this. We're learning this right now. We spun up a bunch of incubation projects. We took bandwidth away from Destiny, and it's killing us. How is that not valuable information? This conversation is so idiotic. It is idiotic. To watch a company the size of Bungie with the success of Destiny sputter out and shrink in demand when they started taking bandwidth away from Destiny, but people still want to invoke that like The Last of Us Online could have been a thing, you're not paying attention. You're not. One of the longest standing live service games expedited its decline, and all it had to do was spin up a couple incubation projects. That's all it took. That's all it took. And you think Naughty Dog could be working on Intergalactic and another single-player game, and Neil Druckmann's working on the TV show, and they could just spin up The Last of Us Online and it would have been successful? That doesn't make any sense. It doesn't. That math doesn't math. Veterans in the live service industry are sitting here telling you we're killing our own game by having split vision and distraction and bandwidth being sliced up. And you think you're going to spin up Last of Us Online? Thanks for reading the comment I disagree with you on, saying I struck out when I've agreed with you on everything else you've said today. Well, Garrett, you're going to get my attention with disagreement more than agreement. You should know this. You've been here a long time. It's more fun to disagree. On this subject right now, you're striking out. You said that The Last of Us Online would have been great. How could it have been great if they weren't even equipped to support it? That doesn't logically add up. A game can't be great as a live service effort if the studio's not even equipped to support it. Somebody left a really long comment in Twitch, and I want to go back and read it. CTSG says, maybe I'm naive, but I'm sold on the promise that Marathon makes. I see it as having the solid bones to become a good game, but it's missing the muscle weakened by a desperate attempt to boost revenue before the end of the fiscal year. Destiny 1 and 2 were also weak games at launch and only took off in year 2. I'd be inclined to believe Marathon could follow the path, but the drama discussion followed the overall statement has already taken its chance. No, I'd agree with you at all, CTSG. Destiny 1 would never have survived today. It survived in a desert. There are too many games right now. It's too easy to say, game sucks, I'm going back to Apex. Game sucks, I'm going back to Valorant, Warzone, Fortnite, PUBG. I'm going to go play Arc Raiders. There are too many games now. Destiny 1 survived and got a stay of execution because there was nothing to play when it launched. And at the time, you got to think in 2014, there was nothing like Destiny out there. Destiny 2 barely survived. By their own admission, in February of 2018, they were facing utter destruction if the decline in player base continued. They pulled an emergency ripcord, and they had the community summit, and they had to turn the entire game around. All hands on deck for Forsaken. So no, you're not doing that again, and you're certainly not doing it with an extraction shooter. You need a player funnel from jump or the game's DOA. If you don't have a player funnel and people start abandoning the game in the first couple of weeks, you're done. You're cooked. Shut it down. You got nothing. You don't have anybody to even stick around to give you feedback. I think you give Bungie too much credit. I'm not giving them credit. I'm just speaking factually. I'm not giving them credit. You're misinterpreting everything I'm saying because you guys are being more amazingly, you're being more emotional about this than I am. Way too much you are? All right, sit down and listen for just a second. I am not giving them too much credit. I've only spoken in facts. The game almost died. That's invaluable information. The game's had highs and lows. That's invaluable information. The game's been around for 10 years. It's done something that so many other games have tried to do and failed. That is very valuable information. Facts are not the story. Yes, they are. Those are all facts that mean you can't claim Bungie brings nothing to the table when it comes to live service. There is no substitute for experience. What Zubair is saying, I'm only speaking in facts. I'm not giving them credit for the success of Destiny. Do you want to know why? I've also talked about how some of their best times were when they had parallel development with High Moon Studios and Vicarious Visions. They know better than anybody how difficult it is to manage a cadence of delivery of content because there was a time where they had 2 other studios helping them. That is very valuable information. Facts don't define the story at all. Falsify what I'm saying instead of just dealing in tired assertions. You're just dealing in tired assertions. You don't want to give Bungie credit, but you haven't argued. You're just asserting things. I'm arguing with facts that these guys can walk in the room and say, what kind of game are you building? Okay. What's the content rhythm? What's the content structure? What's your parallel development structure? What's your bandwidth structure? How quickly can you have deliverables out after your initial launch? How quickly can you have DLC out? How many hours do you anticipate getting from your seasonal content? How many hours do you anticipate getting from your DLC content? Who's working on what right now, and when do you anticipate these things coming out? Oh, and by the way, you also have to have psychological answers to content rhythm re-engagement patterns because we had a behavioral brain scientist named John Hobson help us develop content rhythms and loops within Destiny because so much of live service is not about the technical, it's about the psychological. They can walk in the room and do all of this, but they don't know about live service? It did nothing for them? Really? So the game survives for 10 years while all these other live service games don't even make it out of the gate. So many live service games don't even make it out of their second year. They make it 10 years. And you're like, yeah, no, they don't know what they're doing. Define survive for who? The company is still open. The company grew. They became so profitable. They expanded. They became so profitable. They had plans for studios. They had plans for all sorts of things. They get acquired by Sony. Their mistake was they didn't want to do Destiny 3, probably because it was too hard. I think it was too hard. I think Destiny 2 was too hard on the company. I think the engine's too slow. It's too arduous. It was extremely stressful. They no longer had VV and High Moon to help them. So they said, we can't do Destiny 3. We need to start spinning up other projects. That's a business decision that makes perfectly logical sense. They know better than anybody that the car's starting to run out of gas. You can't just manufacture, we can just keep getting people to re-engage for forever. No, you can't. Every single live service game in existence right now has experienced the downturn. So according to you, nobody can speak to live service. No one has expertise in live service because the slowdown in Bungie is your argument. Like the slowdown in Destiny, that's your argument. Yeah, they can't speak to live service with expertise because they had a slowdown, they had a decline. Well, then nobody can. Nobody can speak to live service because every single game in existence right now has had its decline. Even something that was as booming and as insanely popular as Marvel Rivals has had a huge decline from its initial apex of popularity. You're not seeing the picture. Oh, please educate me on the picture of Bungie and Destiny. I'm very out of touch when it comes to this game and the studio and all of the things that they do. They had many, many mistakes on your naming them on top of other things, especially with the PvE and community in-game. No, not what I'm saying. Look at GTA and Warframe. Yeah, Warframe's had a consistent decline in player base down to a floor. So, yeah, GTA Online, I don't know GTA Online's player numbers. There's no way to know them. But every single game, even the most popular games, have a decline. They all do. They all do. There's no such thing as a game that has perpetual increase of re-engagement. I think it's probably impossible. Laws of nature, laws of physics, basic math and probability would say that's not possible. You can't have eternal increase of re-engagement. Have their communities gone to war? So what you're doing is you're getting down into the minutia of mistakes that they've made and mishandling of situations. Buddy, I could write a book on how unprofessional, petulant, and hubristic the company is, okay? I could write a dadgum book. Maybe you don't know who I am, but I could write a book about it, brother. We're not talking about the individual mistakes along the way. We're talking about a company that can walk into the room and say, if you are planning on building a live service game, we can speak to necessary bandwidth. We can speak to structure of parallel development. We can speak to structure of teams, team leads, rhythm of development. We can speak to all those things. We can speak to warning signs within player behavior. We can speak to good signs within player behavior. These are all things they can speak to. They have a decade of successes, failures. They have a decade of saying, when we did this, it was a giant screw up. Don't do this. When we did this, this really worked. When we did this, oh buddy, did we drive players away. That is information that can help any live service studio assess whether or not they're equipped to get their project up and running and successful. It doesn't matter that along the way they've made mistakes. There is no company that has a perfect track record. There's just no way. You're not going to have a game that's out for 10 years and not make any big mistakes. Final Fantasy XIV can tell you all about that. Big mistakes and how to turn it around. Bungie can also speak to that. Big mistakes and how to turn it around. This is information that is helpful when thinking about the actual content structure of your live service game. Publicly, they have been to wars. Brother, you're speaking that the devs that can say those things, yes, but those companies can already see these things because their communities have gone to war. It's nuclear every year. You're speaking in emotional language, not factual language, which is why this is such a waste of time. I've only spoken in facts. I've only spoken in assessments of what Bungie knows, what they've been through, and what they could bring to the table for a live service studio. You are speaking in emotion, which is a complete waste of our time. Who cares about the emotional response of the community? No one cares about that. Who cares about people being mad at Bungie? That has nothing to do with the discussion. WoW hasn't. Please speak to longtime players. WoW hasn't what? What else is going on? I mean, we're discussing Marathon. We're discussing Bungie. I've got a video coming in a little while here where I say that all hope is lost. But we've continued to have this discussion about, like, because Bungie has had poor decision-making along the way, and because their game is now in a decline, they can't speak to live service. I think that position is idiotic. It doesn't make any sense to me. It makes zero sense. It's like they've been through the literal trenches. They've had near-death experiences for their game. Those are all extremely valuable pieces of information to give to any studio. Comcast, thank you so much for 23 months of memberships, man. I appreciate it. We've been hovering beneath 100. Whoever makes it hit 100, you guys get the gifted members. Can't talk biases as a topic discussion. Lono has only stated facts. Just because you don't like a studio doesn't validate your points on the subject. The thing that kills me in this discussion is down into the atoms of my blood, down into like the microscopic pieces of my blood, I loathe the company. I have a vested interest in seeing the company's just downfall, and I'm sitting here saying they have something valuable to bring to the table. You played for 5 years? I covered extensively for 5 years, homie. I was mistreated by the studio at a degree that you can't even calculate, and I still can say factually they have a lot to bring to the table to the live service discussion. To say otherwise is just idiotic. It's idiotic. The main guy who was there in 2018 when they almost didn't make it, he's still there. He got a promotion recently. Having that guy in the room is extremely valuable, whether or not you agree with him or not, or whether or not you think he's made good decisions. And 2 singles come in from Stone Spire. He's trying once again to bait. He's baiting the 5 bomb up to 100. They've made it through so much, yet they made Marathon. Yeah, Marathon is a demonstration of Bungie's hubris. So Bungie's experience with live service is separate from bad toxic leadership. Like, if you come over their data and you've got like, when was the game doing its best? When did you have your best upward momentum? What were your biggest turnaround times? What were your biggest turnaround moments? That is all information that is purely just nice, helpful data points. And that has nothing to do with the fact that, like, they've got terrible leadership and the hubris of the company. I mean, just ignored feedback on Marathon. I mean, these guys are ready to be done. Did the leadership not look at their own data? I think it's obvious. I think we're looking at people that have 1 foot out the door, Garrett. They have 1 foot out the door. That doesn't invalidate the data. That doesn't invalidate the data. Just because the leadership's being stupid, foolish, or hubristic and think that, like, they just sit in the office and sniff their own farts all day because they think they're great and their crap don't stink, that doesn't mean the internal data analysis or the people that are very attuned with those rhythms within the game, that's not all thrown out because leadership's bad. Let's speak to this in a completely different way. Can Activision Blizzard not speak to the highs and lows of a live service game? It was a toxic company. There was all sorts of misconduct. Bobby Kotick threatened to kill somebody. Insane things happened at Activision Blizzard. You'd be an idiot if you said, that means that Activision Blizzard can't speak to the success of a live service game. I mean, they've been through the trenches with Diablo 3 and Diablo 4 and decades of Call of Duty, but they know nothing because they've made mistakes and, even Call of Duty's in a decline right now. So they can't speak to live service. That doesn't make any sense. There's no logic behind that. It's pure emotion. I'm mad. They did things I don't like. I'm mad. They were toxic as a company internally. So, they don't know about live service. That's the argumentation we're getting about Bungie. I'm agreeing with you, but ignoring the massive negatives because the book balance looks good. Nope. Now you're repackaging my argument and you're shadowboxing. I've never ignored the negatives. I said that the negatives are just as informative as the positives. You're just straw manning. You're not even engaging with my argument. I never said, we can ignore the massive negatives because the books look good. I didn't even mention the book balance. I didn't mention that at all. No, I said they had near-death experiences. The game almost failed and flopped numerous times. You're not even engaging with what I'm saying. You're out here, shadowboxing with some other person that said those things because I didn't say those things. Let's compare it to Marvel the past 2 years. Marvel made bad movies. People complained and boycotted. Marvel makes one good movie in Deadpool and Wolverine, and people flock to the theaters in droves. When it's good, people will watch or play, period. And a Member Plus renewal from Danzatastic, 44 months. That is a long, long time. We are going to inch toward that first 196. Thank you so much. My point this entire time is you can't speak so dichotomously about this. It's like you're acting like Bungie either has expertise or they don't. Like it's this false binary. It's a 0 or it's a 1. And a 5 bomb from Cardock. Run! Twitch took every milestone today. Unreal. Taking us all the way up to 60 and 101. That's an agent of chaos. Thank you so much, Cardock Ren. IO Twitch 5 members. They've stolen every single one today. Lono has tried tons of different things to improve the channel. Some have worked, and some things were absolute failures. You can't discount him as a worthy source of information because of failures. I think that's so well stated, Insomniac Black. I have tried so many different content types over the years and so many different content ideas, and there have been things that have flopped and failed so poorly. I've got videos that did poorly. Would you not interview me? I've got a decade of content creation and live streaming experience. You don't want to ask me about live service? Live streaming? I have a decade of live streaming and creating content. You wouldn't ask me questions about it? You wouldn't be interested at all? Because I've not done the best job. I've made mistakes. I've had failures. I've had pretty big declines in turnout and viewership, and then big boosts to viewership. Like I don't get it. The conversation just seems so weird to me. It seems emotional. Oddly enough, because of my history with Bungie and how they've treated me, and I've got so much distance from it now, right? I can still get pretty angry about it, but I've got so much distance from what they did to me. It's like I'm the one in the room with the least amount of emotion. I'm like, no, these guys know what they're talking about. Listen to them. If they walk in the room and they're not sure you have the bandwidth and the ability to get the game up and running and out the door, you better dadgum listen to them, because all it took for their game to have a downturn in demand that is now headed to catastrophic levels of low engagement, all it took was they spun up other projects and they took bandwidth away from Destiny. That's all it took. That's all it took. And you think you're going to spin up a live service game? You think you can do it? You think you've got what it takes? These guys were doing it for 10 years, and all it took was they lowered the bandwidth the game got. They spun up some other projects, and now they're headed for destruction. They went from 1 million something pre-orders, because you can see the emblems, 1 million something to 900,000, to the latest results are like 250,000 in the same span of time. People are measuring the same span of time. That's what was told to me this morning. If that information's accurate, that is catastrophic. That's 1,900,000 and then a straight line down to the next thing is only got about 250,000 people that has pre-ordered it. That is dire if that's accurate information. That's dire. And what brought them here? The only thing that brought them here was they moved bandwidth around. That's all they did. And you think you're going to spin up a live service game? Their information's valuable, and that's why. As someone who answers questions on how-to situations for a living, I can tell you, people ask me what they shouldn't do far more often than what they should do. Exactly. If you're doing consulting work on content creation, live service games, game development, a lot of the most valuable information are the cautionary tales. Those are almost as valuable as a lot of the times people will say, yeah, we didn't even think that was going to work, and it did. I mean, put that into a data sheet. Yeah, we did this thing, and it was a huge hit, and everybody loved it. Frick. I mean, look at what Fortnite did. Yeah, let's throw out a battle royale. That'll be fun. They didn't know that was going to happen. They didn't know that Fortnite's battle royale mode was going to become the central revenue driver for the company. They didn't know that. A lot of the times, successes in these environments are actually harder to quantify than the failures. The failures are easier to quantify because there's a more direct causal relationship. You're like, well, we did this and people didn't like it, and then the numbers went down. It's nuisance, as you said. I think you're meaning the type of nuance. You're saying I'm strawmanning. You did strawman. You argued against a point I didn't say. I like your content. I'm not debating you on that. Okay? If you like my content, then you should be aware that fallacies get called out. I'm saying you should look at the player response rather than server-side problems. Okay? I'm not looking at server-side problems. Again, you're invoking things I didn't mention. Destiny's problem was they focused on PvP because the numbers looked good. What? Test looked good. The PvE got lost in the sauce. And yes, again, everything you said, but player-wise, that is not the story. Right. Everything you just typed, number one, I don't know if they ever focused on PvP, so that seems kind of an odd take. I covered the game for half a decade. That was never really a focus, and I don't think it's been a focus for the last 5 years either, but okay. Everything you just said, let's just say for the last 2 or 3 years, they had a lot of misfires. Let's just say that. I don't know. I've not covered it. I'm just going to grant that point. Yep, they had a ton of misfires. They made bad choices with the content. Okay, that's helpful information. You have not falsified the fact that they have expertise in the field of live service. You haven't falsified that. Even their missteps are informative. Their lowest point, you want to know what the most informative point they probably can offer a live service game is February of 2018. February of 2018, they were literally facing the death of their studio and the game. If the player numbers continued, it was over. It would have changed my entire career if that would have happened. It would have. Destiny 2, being able to keep the plane in the air, literally catapulted me to the levels that I hit before I got canceled in 2020. So that right there is probably a worse and lower point than they've been up until recently. And I think that information is just incredibly valuable. How'd you get there? What'd you do? What led to it? What internal structures did you change to fix it? What internal structures did you change to protect against it happening again? Those are all things that are just ridiculously valuable. That's all I've been trying to argue. All I've been trying to argue is so basic, but emotion always clouds this discussion. It always clouds this discussion. The discussion turns into, nope, they don't know what they're doing. They're idiots. They don't know what they're talking about. Nobody should listen to Bungie because they did this and they did that and this failed and that failed. And it's like, okay, that has no bearing on the conversation. Don't know if you got it, but I renewed my sub. Tenor Dude. Oh, you did. I'm so sorry. Tenor Dude with 44 months. I'm sorry. It's in a different screen than I'm used to, so sometimes I forget to look up there. Thank you so much, Tenor Dude, for 44 months. And always call me out when I miss those guys. Always call me out. They even had a Gambit-themed season. Not once a PvP season. Yeah, saying they focused on PvP, I don't know where you're getting that. I don't think I've ever seen the Destiny community say, yeah, that was a pretty big mistake, man. They started focusing on that PvP. What the frick are you talking about? When in the history of anything could you say they focused too much on PvP? Two different sandboxes ruin PvP and PvE, and it would break certain perks, subclasses, supers, and exotics. I don't know. I haven't played in 3 years because there's so much to do now. I don't know where to go. Dado for 10 years on the numbers. I'm not sure what you're talking about. I don't particularly care to hear about other Destiny content creators and their takes. I know who Dado is. I've met him. I don't care what any of them say. The point is simple. if you are making a live service game, a studio with that much experience is valuable to have in the room. If you had the team from Diablo in the room, that would be helpful too. And they completely bumbled Diablo 4 and they've been trying to put it back, up on the bike. The team from Call of Duty, the team from Fortnite, anybody could tell you. I would even say the teams behind the failed live service games could tell you what really spelled trouble for them and what didn't work and what did work and why they failed. Like, any live service studio walking in the room that's got experience in the field can speak to it. To act like Bungie can't speak to it is just absurd. Wasn't that a huge criticism from the PvP guy? Says Insomniac, Destiny would never prioritize PvP. That's always been the complaint. PvP's always been an afterthought. That's why I was sort of bewildered by people having any confidence in Marathon at all. Bungie hasn't demonstrated for the last 10 years that they're good at PvP. I don't get where the confidence came from. I'm like, what? Who's gonna build Marathon at the company? The people that worked on the PvP? Well, God help you. They don't have a good track record. They don't have a good track record, man. Bungie is so woefully out of touch when it comes to like Marathon and extraction shooters. Just listen to the way they talk about proximity chat and solo queue. And when it comes to like that kind of a game, they are out of touch. They understand looter shooter. They understand PvE content rhythm. They don't have a freaking clue when it comes to... See, what's funny is Marathon is an ironic piece of proof that you want Bungie in the room when you're doing live service. Why? Because they needed a version of themselves in the room to say, you don't know what the frick you're doing. You don't know what you don't know until you learn that you don't know it. And they didn't know that, like, we are not equipped to do this. We don't know what we're doing. Naughty Dog learned that. We don't know what we're doing in live service. We thought we could just spin it out and do, battle passes and seasons, herp-a-derp. And it's like, no. Marathon is proof. Bungie needed its own version of itself to walk in the room and to say, you guys are out of touch with extraction. The fact that the game is months away from being released and they're like, we're talking about, proximity chat and solo queue. We were looking at the TTK of there's other ways to just tell us you don't know what you're doing. I think they needed a PvP live service specialist. Yes. You need somebody that understands those worlds. You need somebody that understands extraction shooters. I mean, this is what's insane to me. They were bringing in Tarkov players, and look how off the mark they are. It sounds like Bungie devs did know, but the leadership didn't listen. It sounds like they were more talking about like the need for PvE. What's really interesting is how you were bringing Tarkov players to the studio, and you still are like mega out of touch on these elements. What were you guys doing? Luke Vader with 2 months. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Bumping the line to 103. I don't know what happened to the total. We're missing some. I'm not debating that. That's common sense. I said that way in the beginning. Marathon's literally the point. The company decided on that. The devs are pissed. This guy's same thing. I'm sorry I don't know your history with other members. I'm saying their mistakes are known industry-wide, as it's known because their own devs and players have been screaming that. Yep. And the mistakes of the Diablo team are known. The mistakes of Call of Duty are known. All these companies, their mistakes are known. And warts and all, if you're building a live service game... So, do you think Escape from Tarkov has made no mistakes and the devs have and the community's always been happy? Have the last 10 years of Escape from Tarkov been nothing but peaches and cream? and sweet dreams? Like, is that all it's been? Or have they made mistakes? Have they done things that the audience railed against? I would hazard a guess that the history of Tarkov hasn't been perfect. And if you had the Tarkov devs walk in the room and talk about extraction, re-engagement patterns in their game, what people like, what they don't like, what they've tried that hasn't worked, what they've tried that had worked, those would be valuable pieces of information for somebody working on a game that's going to do extraction shooter, that genre. This entire conversation started, and this entire debate started, which is relevant to Marathon, it's relevant to Bungie, and it also isn't going to cannibalize my video, because that's not what my video is about. My video that's going to go live in a few minutes, and I'm going to send you guys over to it, that video is about how all hope is lost for Marathon and probably the studio. I think the studio is in a very bad shape. This conversation started because people were like, yeah, Bungie's a lemon. They've given nothing. Nothing has helped. They haven't. PlayStation's not gotten a single benefit from them. Absorbed 200 employees, spun up a new studio, absorbed an incubation project. One of your big lead studios was deterred from launching a live service game that they were ill-equipped to support. I would say those are some pretty nice benefits. Bungie saying you don't have the bandwidth while not having bandwidth for their own game is just something funny. Mike, did you ever think, it just came to me today, that what they told Naughty Dog was literally from firsthand experience? They were like, listen, we've just shifted bandwidth around and we're already feeling the repercussions of it in our own game. You got to be all hands on deck. They might have been giving them first-hand, from the field of battle testimony to say, you guys all have to be in. If you're not all in, it won't work. They're going through it. They're literally going through it. They shifted bandwidth around, and demand for Destiny 2 was directly affected. Their income and profitability directly affected by not having all hands on deck on Destiny. So what they said to Naughty Dog, it stands to reason it was heavily influenced by their own experience as a studio. Like, and that, by the way, is a game that's been spun up and running and humming for, at that point in time, like 8 or 9 years. Even after 8 or 9 years, just the sheer exhaustion you must feel as a studio, that the minute you shift bandwidth away from Destiny 2, it starts to downturn. It starts to hurt the game. It's like you're 8 or 9 years in and you can't even remotely coast. It's like, no, all hands on deck, all times, never stop, never quit. Like, no, there's a level of irony to it, Mike. You're saying it's funny. Sure, there's a level of irony to be like, oh, you guys don't have the bandwidth for this. And meanwhile, Bungie was literally learning firsthand what that looked like. Wasn't Naughty Dog making a multiplayer, not a live service? That's a big difference. No. They were making a live service game, brother. They weren't just trotting out a multiplayer game that you would play for a month and put down. They were building a game that was going to be built within an ongoing format. That's why why would you have Bungie commentate on their game if they weren't building a live service game? That doesn't make any sense, right? It only makes sense to have Bungie walk in the room if Naughty Dog is building a live service game. If Naughty Dog's building a live service game, you have Bungie walk in the room and assess viability of the project. Bungie had concerns about long-term engagement, and Naughty Dog ultimately concluded this won't work. It won't work because we'd have to change our studio, and they were unwilling to do that. They said in their announcement they would have to become a live service studio, and they refused to do that. Shuhei Yoshida corroborated this and said recently that they didn't opt to do The Last of Us Online because they wanted to be able to build games like Intergalactic. That is fundamentally what Bungie's there to do. They are there to stop that from happening. What a waste that would have been. That would have been an enormous waste to spend all that marketing and time pushing that game out and then to have it fall flat on its face. All right, my premiere just started. You guys on Twitch, you can help out with this, okay? There are 200 of you watching on Twitch. There's almost 500 of you on YouTube. I'm going to put a link in chat. This is my video. I spent a lot of time on this one. It's called Marathon All Hope is Lost. Click that link in chat. If you leave comments, you may get featured in my content. I try to reply to all the comments. So go like it, go watch it, go comment on it. I'll be back live in a little bit for the Green Room. We'll plan tomorrow's shows. But right now, if you want to know what I think about Marathon and the future of Bungie, it's hitting the premiere right now, and it's called All Hope is Lost. Click the link in chat.